All right, we are live. I think we had a crowd waiting on us here, Patrick. So that's really cool. Welcome, everyone. You all know me. I'm Mitch Breitweiser, a 15-year veteran comic book artist of books like Captain America: The Chosen, Drax the Destroyer, and many, many more. You also probably know that I have an Indiegogo campaign currently running called Red Rooster Golden Age. It was a 48-page special. It is now a 60-page special because we have absolutely blown past our first stretch goal of $60,000. We did it in less than 2 days. So I thank you all for that and for your support. Elizabeth thanks you, and Mark Pellegrini is just happy to get 12 paid for 12 more pages. Okay, speaking of writers and collaborators, I have with me today my longtime friend, Patrick Stiles. Patrick is a college friend, a peer, a man amongst men, and a creative genius. Patrick should be writing comic books right now, and I think he will be soon. So Patrick and I met in college. He was in the same art program that I was in, and we had many of the same classes. We bonded over a love of fantasy art and comic books and similar comic book artists, and then a love of crafting stories, which we proceeded to do during and after college for, how long has it been, Patrick? Has it been 16 years or more?
2018. So yeah, about 17 and a half years.
Golly.
Well, no, when we met, we about 15 years, because it was a couple years into college before we actually met. So
yeah, but we hit it off right away and started just kind of drawing comic books in our dorm rooms or after hours in the art lab, and then just kind of discovered that we both had a passion for storycraft and storytelling. And if you've got a passion for creating characters and creating worlds and telling stories and trying to have an impact on an audience, it just comes out well, I won't make a gross analogy. So yeah, Patrick and I started creating way back, and some of the ideas that we even hatched in college have resonated with us through our professional careers, our various professional careers. Patrick and I, after college, talked very, very frequently on the phone, hashing out a storyline that we called, can I say it? Children of the Forge. I'm going to say it anyway. Yeah. A set of characters that revolved around a villain we called the Forge Master, and we will talk about that at some point later on. But those collaborations helped us to sharpen our skills as storytellers, as story crafters. And then I did something crazy. I got a job at Marvel Comics. and all my free time went poof for a while. I was very, very focused on making an impact on my career. And Patrick went on to get a job at BMI in Nashville, Tennessee, which is a music and royalty rights and music auditing company. I hope I kind of got that kind of right.
Close-ish.
Large business. It's a very, very large industry in Nashville and in the music industry. So, and it was about, I was probably 2.5 years into my Marvel career, and something was missing. Something was lacking in my life. There was a hole in my heart that needed to be filled, and that was I was not creating stories anymore. And after I distanced myself from that, I realized how much I absolutely loved it, and it had to be a part of my life. And I remember talking to Elizabeth about it a little bit, and we were newlyweds at the time, or pretty close to it, and just feeling this need and sketching out. I just had an idea, a very, very rough idea, and I remember calling Patrick. I said, Patrick, we need to do something. We need to collaborate together again. I'm, starting to get better at drawing, and fans are responding to the books that we're publishing here at Marvel. Building an audience. We should do something with this audience and with this experience. I had I had a title and kind of a very rough set of tones that I wanted to strike, and that was the Futurists. And it was, hey, let's tell a story about a bunch of gaslight era, you know, kind of mid-late 1800s heroes that kind of have globe-trotting adventures and are kind of have these weird mystic powers. And that was basically it. Patrick, can you recall this conversation?
Well, we started by talking about wanting to take advantage of the momentum you had in your career, you know, the audience, and then how we wanted to take advantage of that and provide something that was new. I mean, we both, I think we were mature enough at the time to realize that, you know, you can drive yourself mad trying to create something that's like wholly original, you know, and that's not borrowing anything. So we really kind of looked for something that is a term that I've used frequently lately. You know, it scratched a lot of itches, and so we started very deliberately trying to conceive of an idea that was fresh and that had a setting that was, you know, not never explored before, but one that was underutilized. And I remember we first kind of went. There was an initial concept that became the Futurists that was, I think, a little less. You know, it was well intended, but in retrospect, you know, it didn't have the dimensions that the Futurist has. But we did find the setting that that Blue Raj period in India was magnetic, and so we started to build out, take aspects of that older idea and kind of plant it in this new setting, and eventually that you know that became evolved into what the Futurist is over many iterations. And I believe at the time, I mean, we started it was with that webcomic idea, you know, and so we worked on that for a while, short-lived. You know, we went for a few months, I think back in 2009.
So Marvel basically put the kibosh on that. They said, hey, I know this doesn't violate your contract, but we would really prefer it if you did not do this web strip called The Futurists. And it was probably for the best, because we were just trying to get our ideas out there and see and float something and see if there was a little audience for it. We actually, that was one of many, I don't want to call them false starts, actually, because I'm going to call them evolutions. I think that's a better word. We would put something out there on the Futurists. Patrick and I behind the scenes would be working on an angle on the story. By this time, we had honed in on a set of characters that were central to the story, including if you're familiar with any of the art, I need to put some of this art. I'm going to do this next time I give the mic back to you. I'm going to try to pull some of the art up so people can see this. Teddy with the metal arm was sort of the less than gallant hero of the story, and Harij was this sort of twisted Peter Pan type character, the boy sorcerer type character. Teddy's family, who was imperiled, and a character that has gone on to become my favorite character of all time, called the Commodore. And the relationships of all these characters evolved in many, many ways over many, many years until and we would take a stab at this. We took a stab at it at with the webcomic. That was short-lived. And then after my Marvel career was over, we kind of not over, but after we left at Marvel, and Elizabeth and I started doing something a little bit different. We talked about pushing it again, and we had become better storytellers. That's for sure. But I went on to do a few other things instead. And then I would say it was a couple of years ago, we started making another pretty behind the scenes, another big push. And that's where, if you followed me recently in the last 3 or 4 years on Twitter, you've seen all this video game style concept art and character designs that are more illustriously rendered, in my opinion. And I think in everyone else's. That was another big push for about 6 or 7 months we put on this story. And then ultimately, what happened with that push, and you, Patrick, you can fill everybody in on this, but We, in our maturity, and through cutting our teeth on several projects, including some I can't talk about, together, we became really much better storytellers, much better storytellers, and I became a better artist. We matured into, I think, an ability to craft a really a grand narrative with compelling characters. Patrick met a beautiful and lovely woman and got a couple of promotions.
Yeah.
And then he became kind of hard to get a hold of, which I can't blame him. I know what it's like to be incredibly busy and incredibly in love. So, but now we are, I guess this is like the fourth wave of the Futurist is being resurrected. We have some things have happened in my life recently that have paved a way for us to finally bring the projects that have been floating around in my head, like the Futurists and Red Rooster and other things. Patrick and I have noodled together on many stories. So am I getting those details right, Patrick?
Yeah, no, we've been through a lot of iterations of this particular idea, and yeah, after that, the project that we can't really go into details about, we had a that was a couple year period, and when we went through that process, and in that process we had developed this kind of back and forth that proved out, really, we had proved out a methodology for approaching kind of large form narrative, graphic novel scope stories. And we thought, well, we did this, and after we kind of rested and recuperated, and from that experience, and tried to get our creative momentum back, to where we really felt like, because after coming off that project after such a long time, that was it was hard to come back with a lot of momentum, like to feel very creative, because we had put a lot into that. So when we came back around, we wanted to try and implement what we learned, and we did. But yeah, we've been out of sync, it seems, ever since. There was big life events that happened on both sides of this chat. So, and it's just very it was difficult, where we'd be able to work in sprints, but we were never able to really work in sprints at the same time. So, which really presented a lot of challenges to collaborating on anything, because I might get every quarter I go into 3, 4, 5 weeks around distribution, our distributions, where I work, where there is no free time, and then you come off of that, and that's a time where whatever we've been working on previously is kind of sitting, and you're moving forward, you're moving that farther downfield, and then when it's time for me to come back into it, I find that it's been developed, and then there's in my absence, and then just trying to get back on board and syncing back up, and getting our ideas to sync again.
But now we have a new momentum.
It was very challenging.
Now we have a new momentum behind, in many ways, an entirely huge and new movement in comic books. Excited about new content and new creators, and old creators bringing new ideas forth. And for people, some people are coming in. I'm reading the chat here, and a few people are new, so they want to know who I'm talking to. I am talking to a longtime friend, Patrick Stiles. Patrick and I co-created the Futurists together. So if you followed me on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook for any number of years, probably almost 10 years, this story has been dancing around in our brains. Patrick is my longtime collaborator for the Futurists project. We have probably spent thousands of hours on the phone together, plotting this grand narrative, and that's the next thing I want to talk about. People are asking me, what is the Futurists? So we now have talked about a little bit of our history, the history of the book and its various permutations. They want to know what it's about. They want to know what it's about. Primarily, it's a story about a family, um, a family in crisis. The basic gestalt, because people are loving. So I like breaking things down, and Patrick does too. In fact, we worked on this together as a skill set, distilling this down into its basic components and most compelling components, parts, right? So Red Rooster, we've described it as Rockwell meets Lovecraft, and people hear that and they're like, "Oh, that sold me. That sold me," because they love that irony, that sense of, "Oh, that's like some of the most beautiful Americana images crossed with some of the most macabre and creepy things I could imagine." We have described the Futurists many times as Peter Pan meets Apocalypse Now.
Right.
And I told somebody that yesterday, and they were like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
okay, well, that was cool. I got just the response I wanted from it." So it's basically Peter Pan meets Apocalypse Now. It's like, Patrick, I'm going to kind of let you take it from there, because you know this just as well as I do.
Well, yeah, it's a. I mean, it's going to be the Peter Pan meets Apocalypse Now was really great as far as capturing the theme, kind of the flavor
But what is the
of
plot?
the overall concept. The plot is you follow a family in colonial period India at a time, shortly after a short-lived rebellion there, and a family that's been broken apart by those circumstances. And you have a mother and a daughter who are, they're kind of estranged from their husband, and their husband, who has become a little bit of glory seeking. His priorities have been misplaced. He's a bit of a treasure hunter, and he feels that it's his imperative to realize this ambition, and ultimately that's what's good, for the family. And then you have a mother that is just trying to raise her daughter under disparate circumstances in a war-torn country, and trying to fight and preserve some aspect of the lives they once enjoyed, as a more prosperous family. And so it's about a broken family, and really about the daughter's ideals, and how she sees her parents. Um, in the case of her mother, she sees her parents. She has an ideal set for her mother that's really not fair, and then she has an ideal of her father that's not really true. She idolizes him as this adventurer, and holds her mother very much responsible for the strife, and for the rift in their family and their relationship. And so over the course of this adventure that they have, they encounter all sorts of colorful figures, mystical, there's mysteries of this old world. And okay, sorry, my screen changed for a
Yeah.
second. I started getting some screenshots from Mitch's side, and it kind of threw me. I wasn't sure if I was live.
Is it showing? Are the images showing now in a clear way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, and I'm going to show some images while you run through the rest of the background for this story.
So there's just against a lot of conflict in the area. I mean, the India at this time presents its own challenges and mysteries, and a really fascinating and unique historical flavor. And then we have antagonists that are going to oppose, directly or indirectly, this family from reconciling their differences. And ultimately, what it comes down to is you have Hannah has to grow in a way where she's adjusting her ideals to be a little more realistic and a little more fair. And these the parental figures, they're going to have to grow in a way where they align a little bit more with, but they align more, but realistically, with who they should be as parents.
Yeah.
They all have to grow and ultimately, grow together, and they have to do this over the course of this, rollicking adventure through this mysterious land where they meet. Harij is who I'm looking at now, who just came up on my screen. Who is this? He's this Peter Pan figure.
He's also a notorious gangster. at the
And then the
outset
twist
of
gets,
the so we've talked a little bit about some of like maybe the emotional growth and changes that some of these characters are going to have to go through in order to become wholly realized through the events of this narrative. But when we pick back, obviously, it starts in crisis, I think, as any good story does, and this is a family in crisis. Teddy, in particular, is at the absolute lowest point. I mean, he is the exact opposite of the ideal father when we pick up this character, right?
Mhm.
And the daughter who idealizes the father, and they're separated half a continent away, or a subcontinent, I guess is the correct terminology. I don't know if I give too much away here, but essentially they become captive. They become captive through a crisis event, essentially. And the daughter, and I'm not giving too much away here either. The daughter goes through a particularly terrible trauma that allows her to shoot. Well, I'll tell you this: the story in general, every character is essentially cursed. Every single character is essentially cursed, either by some supernatural type of event, or through their own they're cursed by their own desire, or they've gone a bridge too far with their passions. And in many ways, that's what this story is about. It's a story about characters that, especially the villains, but also some of the heroes of the story, have pursued their passions at the expense of their duties, at the expense of their morals and virtues, right?
Yeah, they have and then as their priorities are really going to be challenged by the conflict that evolves and carries them across, the story, and both also across the country. They have, there's one of the things that is the catalyst towards that growth is a conflict, is this rebellion that's brewing in part of the country, and how the one of the antagonists, and like I said, I don't know how much to give away or how much has
Well,
already been given away in previous
go
conversations.
ahead,
But
tease it out a little. Tease it out a little. People
yeah,
like that. Yeah, they're
well,
going to want to
there's
buy this anyway because it's they're hooked on the images and the tone and the plot so far.
well, you have a couple of antagonists that that are basically setting up the battlefield across the India, colonial India at the time, and they have the family really is just kind of making their way through this battlefield, over the course of this adventure, and then there's an overarching threat that is these mysterious figures that we've already mentioned, the Forge Master, the Children of the Forge, and the greater role that they play. Ultimately, everybody has the like Mitch mentioned, everybody is cursed. In a lot of cases, they're self-cursed. They're victims of their own ambitions, or in the case of the daughter, it's just her really her immaturity, and her like blind affection and devotion to a father figure who really isn't that great of a father. But then hopefully over the course of the adventure, he becomes shaped into the heroic figure that much more aligns with her ideals.
Yeah, but she will have to come to terms that her visions of an idealized, adventuring, and gallant father, she will have to cope and come to terms with these when she's met with the realities. The stark contrast of her ideal is met in a very crushing way. And in part of what the book is about betrayal. Harish, who is featured here on screen.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, that's like you're approaching that whole Peter Pan concept, and about how and this is really where it gets into the Peter Pan parallel in dealing with this, broken dream and children having that immature perspective and having this very unrealistic, perspective of the world and who their parents should be and what life should be. But anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh, no, 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 no,
I saw that
no, go ahead.
picture of Harish came up, but which I love that illustration, by the way.
It's
This is
one of my
actually
favorites.
the illustration that we're seeing now is one that surprised me because it was after it came up after we took a prolonged break from co-development of the project. And so this one kind of came out later that I always liked. I loved those huge cannons in that corridor.
Mm-hmm. So this is the Commodore in the Commodore's palace, and the Commodore is so like Patrick said, there are basically two villains, and in many ways, Harish, our little Peter Pan character, is I would almost consider him the antagonist, and I'm separating the villains and the antagonists in some ways here. But I guess the Commodore is definitely an antagonist, but the Viceroy, who I'll show in a second, is clearly a villain. He's the villain of the story, the Viceroy.
He's a little bit more of the Viceroy is a little bit more of the stereotypical, like
yes.
you look at him and he's rotten, whereas the Commodore is very much more layered and a little more sympathetic.
And so the Commodore I've been describing, so Mark Pellegrini, who has helped me craft the narrative for the Red Rooster project and is scripting it, is going to be coming on board and helping us kind of flesh this out, the book. And so the way I described it to Mark was, the Commodore is basically evil Walt Disney, right? He is evil Walt Disney. He is a colorful, like a larger than life character. He's also Teddy, the character with the golden clockwork arm. And by the way, in our story, if you have a character with one clockwork arm, you can only assume that out there somewhere is a one-armed clockwork man desperate to complete himself. So be on the lookout for that. That's one of Patrick's ideas, and I loved it. I loved it. So the Commodore is basically, we have evil Peter Pan, and he's going to come into conflict with evil Walt Disney, which that never struck me until just now. The Commodore, as I said earlier, is my favorite character that we've ever created, because we had to craft in this story. We have this villain, the Viceroy, and the Viceroy is an actual position within. It's the highest ranking. He's basically the governor of the colonial India, right? He's the big dog. So that's an actual position, and we basically kind of taken a historic character and embellished one and turned him into the Viceroy in our fantasy world here. This is not a historic world that we're presenting. This is a fantasy. This is in much the same way that the Red Rooster is a fantasy Americana type story. The Futurist is also sort of I wouldn't even call it, it's a fantasy history environment, right? Where we're taking this and that and this and that and just constructing something that's wholly our own. Would you agree? Right?
No, absolutely. Historical fantasy. It's that time period is mind-blowingly rich as far as just the aesthetics of the area, the history, the mystery of it. Is fantastic. I mean, if you just do a Google search for Indian step wells, which are these really ornate wells, architectural feats. There's thousands of them, and they're amazing. And that's just a small taste of the kind of aesthetic and historical richness in that area. So, I mean, it's historical fantasy, but honestly, it's a land and a history that's fantastical enough, in its own right. But of course, when we get into Clockwork Men, then you're definitely introducing those fantastical concepts.
Yeah, and we're definitely going big in many ways for this. So back to the Commodore, the villain of the story is the Viceroy, and the Commodore is in many ways is also his. Well, it was his. He's his equal, and definitely his better. Actually, he is his better. And so we had to craft the grandest antagonist of them all, and that was quite a challenge here. And to do this, we, of course, the Commodore is starting a civil war and winning it. The Commodore, and I don't think we give too much away by giving the background of the Commodore and who he is and why he's Teddy's shadow character, right? If you're familiar with Jungian archetypes, the Commodore is very much Teddy's shadow. Can I get into this? Do you think that spoils too much?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think it's. I mean, really, the richness of the characters is one thing. I don't think it gives too much away to tell. To give that much away about an individual character, because ultimately where it gets really fascinating is how they interact and drive the plot.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So the Viceroy is a man of noble heritage, but has been sort of corrupted by his like absolutely mad pursuit of temporal power, and has risen it all the way to the top. The Commodore is a man much like Teddy, a man who runs in these elite had at least run in elite circles. But was not of noble lineage. So he was just a made man. He achieved all of his success through great genius. He came to rival the Viceroy before he was out of the Viceroy's jealousies. He sent him into this sort of ungoverned territories to build railways, right? That was his commission. And essentially it was a death mission. It was, he was being sent into where the rebel kingdoms were, where the Thuggee, if you're familiar with Indian, that's where the root word thug comes from. The Thuggee were these sort of a murderous cult, basically. Highly, what would you call it, nationalistic, or what's the right word?
No, they're
a xenophobic religious cult or something like that.
They're secretive. I mean, they were thieves and assassins, but they were individuals who they did it with religious fervor to a degree where they would be offended to be referred to as thieves or assassins. So I mean, they had a very strict. I mean, they murdered and they stole, but they did so with a strict religious observance.
So the Commodore was sent, and his family, right? He is a family man, which makes him Teddy's shadow. He was sent into this ungoverned territory to build railways, and of course, his family was murdered and killed, and he blames the Viceroy, and he should blame the Viceroy. So he has a legitimate grievance, but like the Viceroy, he becomes consumed with and obsessed with this sort of occultic and mystic and otherworldly powers. In order to seek to claim authority and then seek his vengeance upon the Viceroy. And this he does. Essentially, the Commodore has gained, he has allied the rebel princes and the disparate kingdoms that had formed the earlier rebellions and formed them into a great alliance that could rival, and it is a shaky alliance, and that's part of the story. And now they have the power to rival the Viceroy and the British and their Indian allies and all this other stuff, right? And so he basically ignites a civil war on the continent. But beyond that, in order to fund this and for the great impetus for the whole British Empire to step in and stop this madman, essentially. But he's not mad. He's brilliant. He is, like I said, he's evil Walt Disney, maybe with a Steve Jobs twist. He's the ultimate capitalist. Yeah. He's the ultimate capitalist. So he, seeing the writing on the wall and being this great engineer, he says this is the end of British sea power, and he is determined to build. He destroys all the railways in the sort of what would you call it? No man's land. It's like a DMZ. It's like a big DMZ between these two great powers now. And he has the northern part of the continent all to himself and his allies. And he is building the great Silk Road of rail from China, through the Himalayas and into the Balkans. And that's his thing. He is going to be king of the world, essentially. King of the inland of the world, I guess, so to speak. And he has become wealthy and powerful enough to unite all these disparate kingdoms. And it is between these two great men, the Viceroy and the Commodore, and in some ways Harish is a great man. Harish is very well known by name, but no one knows who he really is. He's this great and notorious gangster, but no one actually knows what he looks like. And it actually becomes a double-edged sword for Harish, and we'll find out in the story. But did I paint that correct between the Commodore and the Viceroy? Did you have anything to add to the conflict there?
The Viceroy sent sent the Commodore up to really connect a frontier region by rail to extended power, and ultimately what he ended up doing was severing his connection with the Empire and connecting the rebel princes, which of course, that obviously is puts the viceroy in a situation where there's, if it carries on too long, that's pretty much a vote of no confidence in his ability to control the nation. So he is under a very real threat. I mean, not just the visceral threat of the Commodore in the north and these rebel factions that are becoming that are better structured and almost becoming a country in their own right in the north of the viceroy's country. But then there's also the threat that if it's not dealt with, that the viceroy will just be replaced. But
Yes.
yeah, in the north part of the country, the Commodore is insulated from the might of the British Navy in an area that's still largely frontier. After I believe it was that northern kind of Himalayan foothills section that where a lot of the actual rebellion took place, and so there were. It still remains very unsettled. Not in the real world, but in at the time of the story, there's still a lot of splinter factions and rebel princes that were kind of put on their heels when the British crushed that rebellion, and then have found themselves in a much stronger alliance propped up by the Commodore and his initiatives, while they may not be entirely aware themselves of his ulterior motives.
So let's talk about some of the darker things. So they, being men of great ambition and great power, and pursuing the things of the occult and to the extreme. I mean, the absolute extreme.
And
by
the way.
What's that?
This is like one of the first concept pieces that you did in this style.
Mm-hmm.
For like in this particular style, after I guess really we kind of revivified this effort on the Futurists,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of I love how you carried this particular style forward with other concept art. I mean, it's really great. It's very exciting stuff.
Yeah, people responded well to it. So
this is one of my favorites. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. This is basically, I don't want to give away what they're fighting, what they're battling here. I want this to be this huge mystery piece that people eagerly anticipate to see in the book.
Or even who it is. I mean,
or even who it is, yes. Like, yeah. But it does maybe lead a little bit into my next set of topics. So if the Commodore, this evil Walt Disney, is the shadow character for Teddy, our one of our cast of heroes, and the one who needs to be redeemed. So we have found out the Commodore's family has been killed at the hands of, we don't really know yet. We never really fleshed that. It doesn't really matter. Really, it's at the hands of the Viceroy, right? Because that's who the Commodore blames, and who he wants revenge on.
I mean, he was he definitely put the wheels in motion for that to happen.
Elizabeth is texting me, telling me people want to talk to me in the chat. I can't see my chat because I'm looking at my. I'll tell you what we'll do. Call my name out, the last comic book artist. So tag my name. If you have a question and you really, really, really want to have it answered, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to chat with Patrick so I don't lose my stream of consciousness, because we're talking about a narrative, and I get lost in my head, and I know Patrick does too. And we're talking about art and story. Let us just kind of walk through some of our process, and then I'll double back. And if you tag me, I will scroll back through your comments, and I'll either field a question or I'll let Patrick field a question. Does that sound good with everybody? I appreciate your patience. I know people really, really, really want to have a dialogue in the chat, and I do too.
Hey, can you do me a favor real quick?
Yeah.
Sorry. In the upper right of your screen, there's a piece of concept art that I don't like. I'm seeing a thumbnail, so I'm not sure. But if you go to the left of that one that you have highlighted, go to the left. That one.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing that one.
You don't?
No.
I think I sent it at a time when you were really busy. It was the last one I did. It was the very last one. This was Teddy. So Teddy is a veteran. I'll talk about this one quite briefly. Teddy, because it ties in with the Viceroy. Teddy was a veteran of this rebellion. It's a historic rebellion. And Teddy served as the captain under the Viceroy, who was at that time, I guess, the Viceroy was a captain, and he was a lieutenant. I don't know the rankings of the British Army. I just don't know. But anyway, he served under the Viceroy, and the Viceroy was a younger man, a very ambitious man. And he led Teddy into, this is the backstory a little bit. He led Teddy, basically a bridge too far, into nearly basically sedition. It was, they were pursuing the Viceroy's, I'm just going to call him the Viceroy. They were pursuing the Viceroy's interests. And you can elaborate on this just a little bit. Just give me the brief 30-second piece on this.
Me? Yeah, they promises of glory and riches, the kinds of things that appeal to a man in Teddy's position who could tell himself that he's just doing it because a man should provide for his family in grand fashion, but really he's kind of a glory hound himself. And they follow the Viceroy up onto really a treasure hunt, and they find far more than they anticipated. It ends very badly. And somehow the Viceroy is able to come out of it in the way that in the aggravating way that villains often do. He comes out on top, and Teddy comes out ruined. Really sets the stage for where he finds himself in the beginning.
Teddy at this point was newly married and has an infant daughter, who is the Hannah who we've seen in these other pictures now. She's probably about 16 or 17 in the story now. And this ruins Teddy's life. He goes from idealistic young soldier to I hate to call him traumatized, but a guy who has not made the right choices thereafter, and has to change himself dramatically if he wants to restore his honor as a father and a husband, and just as a decent person. And he tries, but he has a lot to learn and a long way to go. So that's this. That's the story. Oh, I think we ventured off topic. Oh yeah, we were talking about the Commodore and his. We're talking about Teddy's family. So this is why he's his shadow. The Commodore has lost his family, and being a man of who pursues ultimate power, what would this? And he loved his family, right? So he had everything and lost it. From the Commodore's perspective, he's a man who achieved nobility, even from being a commoner, through his own genius. Teddy was a man who has his family. So it's kind of this twist. Teddy wants this kind of noble bearing and to be this kind of impressive and heroic and dashing figure, because he could have been, and he once was. So the Commodore has everything Teddy wants except his family, and the Commodore has lost his family, and Teddy has his, right. So there's this. That's why I think there's this interesting dichotomy, this shadow character, and Teddy has to learn from the Commodore. So the Commodore eventually, is it too much to spoil that the Commodore comes in? I'll let you figure that out. The midpoint of the story, where everything gets flipped on its head. Who does the Commodore come in possession of, and why is that important? Can we get into that?
No, because I think that's not that we can't, obviously, but I think that's a particularly good twist.
Okay, we don't want to give away twists.
There's a little bit of surprise there.
Yeah. So if we can get through the midpoint, this is a grand story, by the way. So I pitched this to Mark, and then I pitched this to our mystery artist. Just to remind you all, we have a mystery artist that has agreed to draw this, and Patrick is one of probably 6 people that know who it is. And it is an absolutely astounding announcement that we're going to make this month.
Very exciting. It's very exciting.
If we hit our $90,000 stretch goal. So I think we will. By all metrics, it's looking very, very good. And I'm going to work very, very, very hard to earn earn your hard-earned dollars and make not just one book happen, but two books happen, and then many, many, many more after this. So, as I've told this story to both the artist and to Mark Pellegrini, they're like, okay. When I first talked about it, like they were thinking this is 6 issues long or something like that. They're like, you don't plan on doing this in 6 issues, do you? And I'm like, no. This is a big story. This story has a lot of weight and a lot of gravity. It's got every member of the family, and these big characters we're talking about. These are the main characters, and I guess we're talking about 6 of them right now. And there are several more supporting cast that we haven't really mentioned, but all of these 6 characters have major important roles to play and very great character arcs. So Patrick, you want to speak in general maybe about the gravity of the story and the grandeur of it, I suppose.
The grand hero?
The grandeur, the grand nature
grandeur
of this. It became kind of an epic in many ways.
Yeah, and are you specifically referring to the ways in which aspects of this touch on other concepts, or?
No, just these characters, just these characters, not the world beyond them, really.
Okay. Yeah, they had well, I don't know if you like, there's a lot in there that kind of gives away, in the scope of some of these with some of these characters, I think that might give away a little bit too much.
Okay, well then let's talk about. So now we know the family: Teddy, Hannah, and Sarah, the wife, and their particular dynamics, and Harij. Let's talk a little bit more about Harij then. Let me pull up a picture of Harij, because Harij is this. This vividly rendered and designed character who I've called him our Mickey Mouse. We're calling him Evil Peter Pan, but I call him our Mickey Mouse in many ways because he has such a iconic look to him, and people just really resonate with Harij and want to know more about Harij. I have a lot of people ask me about this all the time. So let's tell us a little bit more about Harij and his. So we've already said he's a notorious gangster, and that's where we pick him up at the story. But like this is in many ways, this book is a layered onion, and all the characters are layered onions. And Harij is probably, maybe except for the Commodore, the most layered onion. So let's go visit him.
Well, Harij was he appears as a gangster, and the way that his disposition is in the story at the outset is almost like a trickster in a lot of ways, and I guess that's kind of owing to the whole
thing, yeah.
Peter Pan mystique. But he's a lot more than people realize, and he is a. I don't know if you want to get into. I think there are some really interesting.
We can't give away his curse. Harij is another cursed character.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at, right? Yeah. Yeah, I want to stay away from the nature of his curse.
Yeah.
But he is he's this gangster, this trickster that he's ambitious but also desperate. Because of the nature of his curse makes him extremely desperate. And he becomes both enamored by the potential he becomes enamored with one of the central characters, which I guess, it's okay to say that it's Teddy's daughter, as opposed to like, who else would he be enamored with? Is he enamored with Teddy? Is he enamored with his mother? But he becomes enamored with her, but at the same time, a growing bond between them really compromises his opportunity to finally overcome his curse, to find relief from this unimaginable doom that he's faced with. And so he's a person like all these other characters who continually makes the wrong choices throughout, his story arc, until he's given opportunities at critical plot points to make the right choice. And eventually, hopefully, he does. I mean, you'd have to read to find out if
Yeah,
he does
you'll
or
have to
not.
go all the way to the end to find out if Harish makes the right choice or
But he,
not.
I don't think he would be. Yeah, I mean, um, he would be a truly tragic character if he ultimately did not. But I
Yes.
think we have too much fun with him to. He's too fun and too engaging, I think, to let him spoil
So
in the end.
what about Teddy and Harish? So we're featuring them together a lot as they are in this image that I have up here right now. And so I don't think it's any secret to say that, well, we did say that Hannah and her mother are basically abducted by the Thuggee, and they're drug halfway across the continent in the Commodore's territory, into the Commodore's territory, where they're in the middle of a civil war. Basically, they're caught in the middle and caught on the other side. Now, Teddy and Harish are in kind of our fantasy or fictional Delhi, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where Harish has been this underground, notorious but unseen gangster, and they are on half way across the subcontinent or more. So Teddy, once he finds out what's happened to his wife and daughter, and news travels slowly back then. They're together, right? We're featuring them together on all this imagery.
Yeah.
And for instance, on this image here, this actually shows the dichotomy. So it becomes two stories in many ways, two narratives that eventually become one. The wife and the daughter have their own storyline that's incredibly exciting. And then Teddy and Harish almost have this grand adventure, as Harish is in some ways selfishly helping Teddy become reunited with his wife and daughter. So let's talk a little bit about their kind of buddy cop relationship.
Yeah, they have it's buddy cop, but it's kind of in the way of the it's a bit in the vein of if you saw the Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson Starsky and Hutch, you know, they eventually become like buddies, but at first they're very much in conflict, and it becomes an alliance of convenience. It's a partnership based on mutual needs and desperation. And neither one is really going to wholly trust the other in the beginning, but they have this, and this happened very early on. I mean, even in the webcomic, they had this banter that was great. You know, the way that they just kind of ricocheted, puns. Maybe puns isn't the right word, but they there was a lot of comedy going between the two, despite the fact that that their individual conflicts are actually pretty serious. But the adventure you get into with those two, the level of trust or lack of trust that exists between the two of them sets up a lot of pretty humorous adventures.
Yeah, and then they have to come to trust each other, or actually Teddy has to come to trust Harish, and Harish, we have to find out whether or not Harish is actually exploiting Teddy or not, and then if that trust will ever be broken. And that's kind of the fun aspect of the story. And we flip this story on its head a couple times as they progress to their ultimate destination. So let's talk a little bit about the ultimate destination for these characters without spoiling too much.
Without spoiling too much. It's hard to kind of dance around.
We do want to say, like, what about the Commodore's ultimate pursuits is essentially to resurrect his wife and daughter, to bring back to do the impossible. This is what's pursued, and to seek revenge on the Viceroy. The Commodore wants to basically bring his wife and daughter back. And in many ways, the root of this story and is a monkey's paw story, right? So let's talk a little bit about that, because do you want to get into, like, basically the place where we're going in Act 3 and how far these characters are willing to go in order to, for instance, the Viceroy to dominate and rule and destroy the Commodore forever, and then the Commodore to seek his revenge and bring back his family. And Harish actually is pursuing a similar thing as the other two in order to reverse. He's desperate. Harish is desperate to reverse his curse, because if his curse continues, it will be the end of him. And he does it in a horrible way.
Yeah.
so they're all three pursuing basically what's called your broomstick, right? This element of this thing that's keeping the momentum moving in the story. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, they have to, there's a couple of these characters who pursued this in the past and gave up, or thought that it was unattainable. And really, when they find out that there's an opportunity to realize that goal again, um, it comes with significant consequences. Like, this thing it's not literally Pandora's box. In fact, historically, it's painted as being the complete opposite of being something amazing when it's opened.
Well, I
When
think
you
we can
get there.
I think we can address it directly, right? I mean, unless you have reservations. Like,
No,
what,
I mean,
okay,
I don't, because I think the way that we handle it,
is a
as far
twist.
as, yeah, there's a twist to it. So
Yeah.
it's
So,
one of the cities of Shambhala, the inspiration for Shangri-La.
and
Um,
it brings you everything. The city, this mystery city that is impossible to find, but has been known about, and others have found it and maybe never come back. It is our monkey's paw element. It will deliver you your greatest desire, but it may have some twist to it in some way. And in fact, the entire thing may have a twist to it.
yeah, I mean,
There's
it's really,
reasons that Shambhala is very difficult to find, and there are also very legitimate reasons that our heroes, Teddy and particularly Hannah, as she becomes cursed as well, become crucial and critical. They are in many ways become the key and the compass that these other characters need to find the gate, the hidden and magical, mysterious gate of Shambhala to conjure up their ultimate desires.
yeah, you need a way to find it, and you need a way to get into it once you do find it. And those are the pieces that are being brought together in the story over the course of the story. And ultimately, when I think it's fair to say that when the family is brought together, you have all the pieces to get that. So there's the temptation, and this is where I think you're presented with critical choices for characters that need to mature and that need to evolve positively. Is that there you have the family together, and so ambitions beyond that, or ambitions that compromise that, are going to be their tests. That's what's going to test that character and whether or not they've really changed. Um, and for people who took the bait and they move beyond that and pursue Shambhala, they're gonna open up something that is it has the ability to, like you said, it can give you everything you ask for, everything you think you want, but all these gifts are tainted in some way. And
Uh,
in a horrifying way. So the and the way I think that we managed Shambhala, because as we did research, I think this is a really interesting. This is an interesting aspect of the development of the story, that we had the setting that we really liked. We knew where we wanted this adventure to take place, and we're sold on that very early on. But as we developed plot, and then we went back for historical research to see what elements were in place, to really enhance the setting of this idea, we found this spooky synergy between actual history and legend and the plot that we had created. And so just the legends of Shambhala, and both in the context of the pure legend of it, the pure ideal, in a lot of adventure narrative, and then also in what they believe the actual historical Shambhala might be, which I believe there are some cities, some city ruins in the far northern reaches of that country that they believe may have been the inspiration for the actual Shambhala. But then in legend, we find out that wasn't just the one city; there were several. But there were all these different elements, these historical elements and legends that we actually found retroactively just lined up perfectly with the narrative that we were creating.
yeah. So I'm reading through the chat now, scrolling through. Matt C says, "You had me at Shambhala." Maybe that sounds like a piece of dialogue that would be from our book, actually. Let's see. Monkey's paw type. I'm not sure what that means. So I'm scrolling through these backwards, so it's like maybe reading a book backwards. All right. Turtles all the way down, says Elong.
Turtles all the way down. What does that mean?
Okay, so I guess that's a famous quote from like somebody in the chat can correct me, but as I recall, a group of scientists and thinkers from the West got with a group of thinkers from the East. I think it was philosophers or whatever, and this was like a famous meeting. And they were arguing the nature of the universe and what it means. And I believe it was a guru of some type said, well, the universe rides on the back of a turtle. And he was very well convinced of this, right? And everybody, they were all like, well, they thought they'd have a great question. They said, well, I'll poke a hole in this real quick. So said some German philosopher or whatever. He says, well, what does the turtle ride on the back of? And then the guru says, it's turtles all the way down.
Okay.
And then nobody asked down where, I guess. That's the quote was just turtles all the way down. And so that became a famous quote that I think is kind of funny. Gattori Hanzo. He's gonna. I guess that may be his real name. I don't know. Maybe an Italian name. He says he loves or she loves historically influenced stories. So if you love that, you have come to the right place.
Yeah.
I'm like I said, I'm reading these backwards. McGiblets 017 says Shiva never consented to being a part of the League and cursed everyone in it. I think they're talking about League of the Extraordinary Gentlemen, which I guess there might bear some similarities in terms of tone and the sort of era that we set out upon. So it might be some, at least if you liked that book, I think you'll love this book. If you hated the movie, you will definitely love this book. So, bad joke. Cruder Quotient 1 says, this reminds me a lot of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Patrick, have you seen this?
Yeah.
Okay, and there was some other thing too.
Yeah, I don't get the. I mean, if I sat there and thought about it, I might identify more of the parallels, but it's not immediately coming to mind.
There was another. So Mark Pellegrini, who is going to help us realize this script, take all these ideas and get it down into beat by beat, or really panel by panel form. We almost have it down in most of the major strokes, at least, or even some of the minutia. Mark is a cartoon expert, and I didn't know this when I met him. He only revealed this a couple months ago to me, or less. That he actually knows everything about cartoons, and like it's crazy. He is like what's the movie with Sean Penn and Tom Cruise? Anyway, of cartoons. I'm just kidding, Mark. It's a very special gift you have. So he said it was similar also to another concept from some anime, and I don't know what it is. So I'm sure the chat will remind me, where they're seeking Shambhala or something like that. But that's okay with me. Our characters in our world are totally unique, totally special, and it is. There's a quote that Patrick and I like very much from a book that we both enjoyed on Storycraft, and it's called "Show Me the Same Thing, Only Different."
Yeah.
And I think there's something really beautiful in that very short statement. People love familiarity, but they want to be shaken in just a different way. What do you agree with that?
Absolutely. No. It's you can tell you can only tell a story, so many different ways before you've covered it. And it's like every structure. And I think by now in history, if we didn't tell, if we hadn't covered almost all permutation of story before the digital age and before the age of the internet, we certainly have by now.
There is nothing new under the sun.
Yeah. But there's, but I think
maybe we can cast new shadows. How about that?
I think, that's the big appeal of the Futurists. I think that's one of the things that really grabbed us with the setting itself was when you look at the setting in a historical, just in a purely historical concept, it's or context, it's so fascinating, so visually rich, and culturally rich, and yet it's something that in popular media, I don't think it's really been embraced often enough.
Hmm.
But it definitely is kind of a rich enough backdrop for that. I'm surprised it hasn't appeared more.
Yeah. Jesse Miller says it looks like a film. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Comics Legend says, I think we are sold on the Futurists. Don't reveal too many details, in my opinion. Okay. I think the big things, we didn't reveal any of the twists. So we
Yeah.
just want to give you a sampling of who these characters are that you've been seeing for years and years now, and why they're so special to us, and why we've pursued this project for so long. So 19DCS says he was, or she, was hoping for Red Rooster hype. I've been hyping the Red Rooster. I've been hyping the Red Rooster for weeks and weeks and months, and like, and particularly for days and days now. So we will get on to that. I will continue to hype the Red Rooster as this campaign rolls on, for sure. So don't worry about that. One of the reasons I'm hyping the Futurists right now and starting to reveal some more about its narrative and characters and world is because we have a special announcement coming up as soon as we hit our 90K stretch goal, which we know is going to happen. We have an artist attached for this project. Mark and I are about to dive into the scripts for this in pretty short order as soon as the dust settles on Red Rooster, which is pretty soon. Mark wrote me earlier, said he's just wrapping up the second draft or getting close to it. So that's why we're talking about the Futurists. Our mystery artist is producing a poster image that I hope to share with you soon. Sometime in the middle of this campaign, hopefully even sooner, that Elizabeth is going to color, and we're going to offer it as part of this package, so that you can begin to get hyped for this project. If we raise enough money to be able to afford it, and I think we will, another stretch goal will be to bundle maybe a 12. I need to price it out, but I'd like to bundle maybe a 12-page Futurist preview comic. Basically, the first 12 pages of this artist's book, of the book, maybe in black and white, so that we can run another campaign for a completed series, maybe 48 to 60 pages, like the Red Rooster, and offer it in that format, fully colored by Elizabeth Breitweiser. So that is why we're talking about the Futurists today and tonight with my longtime collaborator, Patrick Stiles. Patrick looks excited. He's very excited about this. I mean, this is a long time coming. I know you're excited.
I am excited.
Keegan Hall says, this looks great. The long wait for the issues is painful. Yeah, try being us. Try being us. But the joy of creation has been a reward in and of itself in many, many ways. Would you agree?
Yeah. I'm really glad, honestly, just to plug the Red Rooster a little bit more. That's been an exciting project. I know that that was developed, began to develop during one of the Futurist lulls. I know that you did a lot of you were doing concept work around that while I was off on distribution or maybe off getting ready to get married. But when I saw that character coming out and we started to talk about, hey, when are we going to be able to get traction again on the Futurists? In the meantime, if it's going to be a while, I might focus on this, this Red Rooster concept. And that got exciting. Like every time I saw Red Rooster art coming through the text, coming across my text, I would get, pretty steady concept art for the Futurists. And then every once in a while, when there are these lulls, I'd get some Red Rooster stuff. And when I saw Red Rooster, that would get, I'd get excited about that too, because I could see that it was starting to gel in your mind and you're starting to build a mythology around that character in a pretty exciting way. I like how, the Futurists has had a very long evolution to become what it is now. But the Red Rooster, I feel like it gelled pretty quickly in your mind. And you've done a really great job of fleshing it out. And,
Well, in much the same way desperation leads our futurist characters to extremities. I was determined to bring a project to life, and we kind of, like we had said earlier, hit a part in we made a lot of great progress on the Futurists. In many ways, we solidified the narrative, and we were talking about bringing it to market as a fully rendered product. And then you met Christine and got your promotions, and then that became, and then I just was like, well, I got to bring something to market, and I had this other concept that I was really passionate about called the Red Rooster. And so I said, I'm going to do something. I'm going to make something happen. I'm going to make magic. And the Red Rooster had existed in like the Futurists, in a few different permutations. And when I finally sat down and said, okay, I'm making a book. I am really making a book. I'm making it happen. It danced around in my head for probably a month, pretty heavily, and then it just hit me. I told this on other broadcasts. It almost in a moment of epiphany, everything came together. Like all the pieces started to come together. Like I just figured out who the character was. I knew the exact scene of his intro, and how it contextualized his world and his motives and and the journey that this character would have to go through in order to come back. It's a comeback story. The main series is a comeback story. That's the one that hit me. And I remember pitching it to Patrick. It all came out like literally. It just came out in one epiphany moment. I told Elizabeth about it, and I rambled on for 45 minutes, and she listened patiently and lovingly and enthusiastically. And I remember calling you, I think Patrick, the next day, and I said, hey, I think I've got it cracked. Here's my basic gestalt. Do you remember that phone call?
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I had a couple characters that are now cut. The producer and the actress.
I do remember them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you're referring specifically to that conversation. I wasn't sure if that was the moment when it really.
That's when. That's kind of when it all came. It all started coming together, and then I pitched it to Mark. Probably when we met Mark, maybe 2 or 3 months later, and pitched it to him, and then we started just sort of taking that basic gestalt and breaking it out into a longer form series of issues, which might become more like quarterlies. And then later on, after that, I said, okay, we're going to tell, that was the story of his comeback. And then I said, okay, we're going to, instead of doing that, we're going to open with the story of his downfall. Because I think that it puts, that's better for, it's the real moment of crisis. It's the hinge. The Indiegogo special is the hinge between his two worlds, his rise to fame, and then his, basically his disappearance from the world stage or the national stage, and disgrace. So
I will say one of the things that I didn't find out about, or I didn't realize until you got closer to actual campaign launch. And I looked at some of the issues, but is the nature of the antagonist in the Red Rooster. That was something that I never got the impression earlier that was the nature of the antagonist. But when you finally did reveal that, I got a lot more excited about the Red Rooster plot and where the character was going. Like I felt like I had a pretty good flavor of what the Red Rooster idea was, and the premise. But just the nature of the antagonist, when you started to introduce that, engaged me. I became more engaged with the idea. Much more so.
Thank you. I mean, it's just
to say that it's like it got more exciting. You know, it was exciting enough as it was, but that was like an extra. That was an additional motive for me to kind of invest in the idea of it.
There were definitely there were 3 people who I think saw something in the Red Rooster. I mean, I showed it around, and people, I got some response on Facebook and Twitter, but I was putting more energy and initiative into futurist drawings. But there were 3 people, and Patrick was one of them, and my buddy Chris, and of course Elizabeth, that believed there was something there with the Red Rooster project, and encouraged me to keep on with it. And the thing that became a lark, kind of a gag in my sketchbook, began to really take form in new life when I decided to play it completely straight. Right, here's this man in a chicken costume, fighting crime as a vigilante across flyover country, and then becoming this celebrity and whatnot. And then when I think it's the irony of it took flight, pun intended. Okay, I'm not going to do any more chicken puns.
No, I get it. Keep going. I encourage it.
Yeah, it took flight when I decided to take this character and play him straight like Batman. You know, it's a man in a bat suit. But yet we all, of course, he's played for laughs on the '60s campy TV show. But in all modern incarnations, he has played straight. And so I thought, you know, when we do this with the Red Rooster, then the thing becomes very real. And it's kind of becomes a 1-2 punch. And that's the idea behind this book. You buy this book thinking it could be a lark. It could be something that's kind of slapstick. And it has its moments. But it's not a gag book. It is, it takes you on an emotional ride, and that's kind of the point.
Yeah, it's exciting. And the you know, having seen the really kind of like the 50 mile, that's high, like the 5 mile view of the story for a long time. Actually looking through the script, you really can pick up on the depth of the narrative there. Honestly, page 1, you know, it's more, it has more depth than I think I realized when I had that initial high level view of it.
Thomas Anderson says, "I can't support you," and then says, "Shut up, shut up, shut up." Okay, and I make him hate life. There's always somebody. Let's see here. Edwin Boyette. Edwin, you might be familiar with Edwin now. So Patrick has a profound observation. By the increase in his interest, the quality of the antagonist matters. Yeah, I think that's, I'm glad that's coming across. Thomas Anderson is happy that I mentioned his name. So now you are famous. Congratulations. So yeah, I'm glad that comes across to Edwin. Edwin has a sharp mind, and he's very observant. And so yes, the quality of the villains matter, and the Futurists has the greatest villains we've ever created, I believe. Well, maybe. I think so. Army Vet Rod Sketch Therapy says, Red Rooster sounds morally like the romantic hero Captain America from Aristotle's and Lord Byron's Poetics, more than the rationalism of Tony Stark, but with Batman's seriousness and tech. I'm not sure what the rest of that says. But yeah, I think that's right. I'm glad that's coming across. You know, we want to strike something that's deep, Aristotelian with Red Rooster, and I'm hoping we're going to do the same thing. I know we're going to do the same things with the Futurists. Let's see here. So I'm scrolling through chat here. So if you have anything, if you want to add anything to that. Speaking of romantic hero, there's another way I describe the Futurist project. Is it's a swashbuckling fantasy, but it's also a romantic. It's a romance disguised as an adventure story. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, there's definitely there's definitely romance. I mean, obviously, it's kind of during a romance period. A place and a time that inspires a lot of fantasy in and of itself. Romantic in that context, but also there's young love, and then there is spurned love, and then there's the reconciliation of those two things over the growth arcs of the characters.
Okay, John Lemus is here. He says, "Hey, John here from Indie Comics Showcase." So You got your shout out, John. Thank you very much. Let's see. Ryan Miller Art says, I want to back, but I'm moving soon. Just hang in there. Hang in there. Moving can be expensive, and you're changing your shipping. Can I change the shipping address later? Oh, you know what? That is a question for Indiegogo support.
Actually, yeah, we just investigated this a little while ago, and supposedly, like after your campaign closes, you can send out a survey, and people can update their. You can provide people the opportunity to update their addresses on that survey. The follow-up.
Okay, great,
so
Ryan Miller.
You can reach out once again, and that would be you, Mitchell, reaching out to your to the donors to give them opportunities to update again.
Okay, Ryan Miller, there is your answer. Of course, the product's going to take some time to draw and to color and to get printed and then shipped. The fulfillment is going to take us some time. Yeah, it sounds like you can change your shipping address. So Jamie Ramirez Art. Jamie Ramirez must be an artist. I think I've seen him around. He is saying, I have seen some people hashtag Red Rooster Art Contest. Can you let us know the details regarding Red Rooster Art Contest? I think it's a great way to engage fans. That is the point. Very cool. And also the point is to encourage artists to improve and to work hard and to be diligent in their craft. So those are the two objectives there. Yes, so you can draw the contest is we have a panel of 4 judges. We're going to have a panel of 4 judges, none of whom will be involved in the comic book. So it won't be me or Elizabeth or Mark Pellegrini. And they will select maybe one winner of the judge contest, and then maybe 4 runners-ups. And the 4 or 5 runners-ups will be involved in a fan vote contest. And the winner of these contests, assuming you don't color the book yourself, or the piece yourself, which you can, will be colored by Elizabeth and then published in Red Rooster Golden Age in the back of the book. So it gives you a chance to be published, be colored by a high caliber professional colorist, and to just kind of get the word out there about your project, or sorry, about your artwork and your style, and kind of make an impact. You can enter as many times as you like, because the goal here, like I said, is for you to get better and for you to be diligent in your craft. So that's what we're trying to encourage is young artists to step out and have some fun, if you want, with Red Rooster. It just has to be Red Rooster related. But other than that, there's really no limits. It's best inked artwork is best, so that it can be digitized and then colored. But if you really want to go out and you're a painter, you want to try that, you can do that too. We're going to run the contest through August, the end of August, so you have plenty of time to finish your piece. Okay, let me scroll on through here. I think somebody says Edwin has the $1 million voice. Yes. Let me get rid of this person here. Okay. Occasionally, some people troll on YouTube. Patrick, did you know this?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I hear that happens on social media sometimes, but it's just never.
Yeah, they'll come in and say mean things and racist things and all kinds of terrible things. Now I'm going to get a bunch of weird comments just for calling it out. Gatori Hanzo says chicken puns are good. I agree. You should annoy all your friends and neighbors and work colleagues with chicken puns until they think you were crazy, and then you can send them to Indiegogo Red Rooster campaign, and then they can become crazy too. William Reed says we're at $63,320 right now. That is excellent. That means during this broadcast, I think we have sold several books, because I think we started around 63,000 when we came on. Go back to the very beginning, and I'll go the other way. Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Oh, the Hulk Hogan is here. He says, "Damn, this looks really great, Mitch." Thank you, Hulk. I salute you. I think it's the real. Is it? It might be the. I doubt it's the real Hulk Hogan though. Somebody said Harij has soy pants. Patrick, I'm not if you're familiar with soy pants.
Soy pants.
Oh,
No,
it's a inside joke from Ethan's channel. What is Ethan's channel? Comic Artist Pro Secrets. We are the last comic book artist. He is Comic Artist Pro Secrets. So Ethan was wearing sweatpants. Ethan makes fun of soy and its detrimental effects on testosterone. And so he was wearing sweatpants on a broadcast one time, and somebody told him they were soy pants. And so
soiled, not soiled. That's
yeah, so long as they're not soiled pants, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, those little I'm sorry, go ahead. You're doing
No, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No. I was just talking about the those pants, Harij's pants. They're like the ice cream pants from MC Hammer. The MC Hammer days.
Yeah. It's like Aladdin meets MC Hammer. So Jesse Miller says, I'm late. How did the guy and the gal get separated? Did we cover that? We kind of did cover that. This is very early in the chat.
I mean, Teddy was, he went off to war chasing, well, he was kind of, he was deployed more or less. And he and the viceroy basically kind of lured a contingent of Teddy and his compatriots away from the main army to pursue riches untold, and that went south. And he basically he was a ruined man after that. And on the one hand, there was the he avoided his family because on one part there's shame. But also, when you get down to brass tacks, there's an ulterior ambition that he has, and his family life really kind of conflicts with that. So whether or not his legitimate reasoning or his reasoning for staying away from his family, his shame and his brokenness is legitimate or not, his current situation enables him to pursue things that you might say are more aligned with his roguish nature.
Mm-hmm. Kuba Kusmirs. I hope I got that. Didn't butcher that too bad. It would be amazing if the Futurists would get albums like French comic books, bigger format, A4, or slightly more pages, just pitching an idea. I think that's a wonderful idea, Kuba.
Especially the concept art that you've got backing it.
Yeah, and then someone else asked about that. Someone said it would be wonderful to have a concept art book. We've talked about both of these things. Like we're doing with Red Rooster Golden Age on Indiegogo. This is now a 60-page. We've hit our first stretch goal. It's a 60-page, basically a graphic novel. We're going to put it in basically kind of a paperback square-bound form. I love the idea of the graphic album in the French style or the Belgian style as a presentation, although I think perhaps the American audience might prefer a trade paperback and then like a quarterly trade paperback. I think this actually might be the new model. For instance, like Ethan's having massive success with Cyberfrog, which is going to be a 48-page special. And I think so long as creators engage their audience in between quarters, and then they release a product every quarter that's a little bit more involved. It's actually really grueling. It's on this monthly grind to do a monthly comic book. It's almost nearly impossible because of the high standards that the audience has for artwork these days, the high caliber of the competition, of the artistry anyway, and so on and so forth. If doing a monthly book is nigh impossible for most of the highest caliber artists. So I think people also, at 20 pages, you're not getting much story in a comic book anymore. And Patrick, as two creators who have tried to write stories and actually tried to fit them in 20 pages, you're like, it's a tall order to fit the kind of story where you want to really create characters with a lot of gravitas and impact. Go ahead.
I mean, there's a way that you hit those peaks and valleys where in the story, those emotional peaks and valleys where you have to establish a certain tone, and you have to build to those things in order to elicit the right impact. dramatically. And the more, the more abbreviated the medium becomes, the more on the nose and stuttered the story is. You're not hitting those highs and lows through a you're not hitting them organically. It becomes very, very forced, clipped, and it becomes extremely difficult to do, especially when you have a really good narrative and you feel like there is something that has a lot of emotionality to it. And in order to communicate that effectively, you need more pages.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and I think that I'm my bet is that that's what the audience is going to crave, because I think the audience is clever. I think we have a very intelligent comic book buying public at this point. They're very sophisticated, and I think they're going to demand more story and less weight. Right? I think in many ways, like it's a bit more of a binge, but it's right than waiting month to month. You can binge 50, 60 pages every 3 months, and then be engaged in the community in between, right? That I think is a good model, and that's the model we're going to be exploring, I think. But obviously what we're doing on Indiegogo, what Ethan's doing on Indiegogo, these are all experiments. These are all experiments outside the current existing paradigms of comic books. So in many ways, everybody that's here in the chat, everybody that's participating in this discussion, you're all like first arrivers. You're here on the frontier with us in new and unexplored territory. So welcome. You are adventure spirits. I think let me just go all the way back to the bottom. I've gone through all this. Nat Denon says this is why I usually just buy trades. Luke's Max Snike says, I am quite intelligent myself. Absolutely. We are not underestimating our audience here. We are speaking to you directly as creators and as fellow sophisticates. I was going to say sophisticates, but then I butchered it. So egg on me. Ryan Miller Art says 100% agreed. This is the new way to go. I love reading trades. Jeremy Licardi has a question. Is there a possibility that a version of the Red Rooster exists in the time and world of the Futurists? And then he says, #RockTheCock. Wonderful hashtag, Jeremy. Very, very clever. Absolutely. Rock the cock over on Indiegogo. I think we sold a couple more books in the last 5 minutes.
He just gave away the secret. I mean, he just gave away the twist.
Rock the clock. The twist, oh yeah, that the Red Rooster shows up at the second to last page. So
he lives in Shangri-La. Yeah.
So the Red Rooster, they get your Jeremy. Yeah, Jeremy's onto something here. The Red Rooster is a mantle that's passed from generation to generation, and a lot of people are having fun imagining what other Red Roosters there could be in past, present, and future times. So here he's imagining the possibility of a Red Rooster in the Futurist universe. Patrick, I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility. What do you think?
Well, no, absolutely not.
We haven't really talked about it, though. It's not.
We've talked about. We have a long time ago. We developed this concept that where there was kind of a shared universe, and we haven't talked about Red Rooster bumping up against that. But I mean, if the Red Rooster existed, obviously, if he was within that universe, then yeah, within every era there was a Red Rooster. A long time ago, I mean, this is kind of funny. When I was I was cleaning in the garage yesterday, and I actually found the original short story that I had drafted in creative writing class in college for the Forge Master, Children of the Forge, and then that central character, Stephanos, for that story. And as he says that, I'm kind of sitting there wondering, and this won't mean anything to anybody who's watching, but yeah, what if Stephanos was the Red Rooster back in the Crusades?
We should talk. We should talk. Because I actually have charted the Red Rooster back to the Templars. And the thought had already crossed my mind, and he has a harrowing journey, and I don't think I've told you it yet. Maybe I have. I'm losing track of kind of what I've told to who. So let's talk in a few days and explore this possibility. So Bethany Frericks. Hope I didn't butcher your lovely, sounds like German last name. She says she is still torn on buying Cyberfrog. You should definitely buy Cyberfrog after you have bought Red Rooster. So buy Red Rooster first, and then be convinced by Cyberfrog. William Reed says we are now at $63,432. All right, so we have sold a few more books just in the last few minutes. That is incredible. Let's see. Let's see. 100% says Ryan Miller. This is the new way to go. I love reading trades. Ryan Miller loves trades. And it looks like other people do too. If you follow the metrics of the comic book business, you will see that trades are growing in sales over the last few years, and sales of individual issues are shrinking. That is a trend. It doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. So you're looking at an industry that's already in the middle of a few disruptions. So really, the future is yet to be charted. Let's see some inside stuff. Okay, Albino Thunderbuns. He's a regular commenter here. Does the Futurist take place in the mid to late 19th century or earlier? So Patrick, you want to put a little context on the time frame of our fantasy India here?
Yeah, I think he's on it. You know, it's like mid to late 1800s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the original idea. Is I said, Patrick, let's do this kind of gaslight era thing, because it's like what I wanted to do was like there was a romanticism at this time period, which is, I mean, obviously, this romantic art was being produced at this time period. Some of the greatest art in history, absolute masterful stuff. But part of that romance is that you had industrialization, but you did not yet have electricity, and so there was still so much mystery to that era. But you had the ability to be transported around the world through train and steam and the like, right? So a magical time in many ways.
Yeah, well, you had that, that budding industrialism, even in colonial India, but also mix in with that the exoticism of the era and the place.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty heady mix.
Tippy Tail McKitty gives a shout out for Rainbow Brute. So have you heard of Rainbow Brute yet, Patrick?
Oh, yeah, you texted Rainbow Brute to me. Yeah, that was pretty.
It is Ethan Van Sciver's $1 million idea. Or maybe his second after Cyberfrog. Yeah, I love Rainbow Brute. I can't wait to see more. He rides. Do you know what his stallion? He rides a stallion. You know what his stallion's name is? So you know the basic gist of it, right? So he's taking these 80s girls' toy properties and cartoon properties and turning them into boys, masculinized boys' properties. He rides upon, instead of My Little Pony, My Girthy Stallion is his, and I think he has a sidekick or something named Strawberry Beefcake, and it goes on and on and on and on. I think he and his audience are having great fun with it. It's absolutely hilarious.
I didn't know it was an expanding franchise.
It is. I don't know what kind of legal grounds he's on, but I'm assuming it's so long he's in the realm of parody, everything is hunky dory. Let's see. Chester Busby says he just wants to give a shout out for Stan Lee. So many bad things are happening to him right now. He needs our support. I have heard a little bit about this. I've been extremely busy, but I've been catching the news. In regards to Steve Ditko passed today. Did you hear this, Patrick?
I didn't catch anything as of today, but I've picked up on some of the headlines. And some articles regarding some of the things that he's been going through as related to business partners, or what he perceived to be kind of what he believed to be above board business partnerships.
Yeah, it sounds incredibly tragic, and I think there was a court order. I haven't been following this in detail, so the chat can correct me and sort out the story if I am wrong. But Stan Lee was his business partner. I don't. Essentially, Stan Lee filed for or he got some type of like there was elder abuse charges or something like this, and in terms of business abuse, I think is mainly what it was. And he got anyway. Today he lost his I don't even know what you call it, a court order protection that he had been given, essentially. And I haven't read the details of this yet, but I'm catching that as something incredibly tragic, and I will look into this at some point in the very near future, because it sounds terrible. We all owe Stan Lee a debt of gratitude for all the beautiful creations and showing other people that they can also create beautiful things and bring them into the world, and how to do it. So incredibly tragic, both for Stan and for the family of the great Steve Ditko today. The Army Vet Rod Sketch Therapy says quartering is the channel. The quartering is covering this and doing a good job of it. Yeah, I subscribe to the quartering and watch his videos every now and again. And I did see that one and bookmarked it, so I'm going to go back and watch it later. Jesse Miller says, is Ethan okay? He hasn't posted anything today. I'm assuming Ethan's okay. I talked to Ethan. No, Ethan sent me a DM. I think he's going to be on tonight, Jesse. So I hope he's okay. He sent me a DM on Twitter like 5 hours ago. So, and he sounded fine. So somebody else says, yes, the quartering has a great video and he breaks it all down. So yeah, go check that out. Everyone, Feel Cool says everyone should send Stan Lee their projects so he has some good books to read. Let him escape from his troubles. That is what we're trying to do. Elizabeth is texting me and saying the camera is stuck on Patrick. I think I did that by accident. But you've been on screen while I'm chatting here. I'm still figuring out how this works. So I am making a mess of myself in front of 162 live viewers.
Yeah, I've never done a live stream before, so.
Okay.
I'm actually sorry, the camera's stuck on me.
I think now it might be stuck on me. I don't know how to get it back. Oh well, I'll just keep tossing it back and forth. Zero Depressive says, don't worry about it, Mitch. Okay, I won't. Okay. Tube Socks 000 says Ethan is busy playing with Tico toys. Are you know about his deal with Rose Tico, right? He is single-handedly rehabilitated the character Rose Tico, and she is now a beloved icon of Star Wars fandom, despite being what I believe was extremely poorly written in the film, and being played by the lovely actress Kelly Ann Marie Tran, I believe is her name. So yes, lovely lady. She just was unfortunately given I believe underserved by the script she was given. Patrick, do you have any thoughts on Last Jedi? We keep them very brief here because Ethan has a whole channel about it. So if they want Last Jedi talk, they go to Ethan Van Sciver.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's I don't know, when Star Wars was a big part of when you saw it at the young age that we saw it at, it's easy to kind of you're seeing things you've never seen before. You're dreaming bigger than you've ever dreamt. And when you carry that into your adulthood and you're promised a new Star Wars, there's no way it's going to live up to the expectation. There's just no way.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, I can be. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be critical of it because I've never made a movie of that scale.
Yeah.
Or of any scale. Yeah, I can. I enjoyed it, but there were some characters that were a little hard to get around.
Somebody pointed out something I didn't notice the other day is I totally missed this. They were dropping bombs in space. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That kind of flew right by me. But yeah, that seems like something they might have figured out. But I don't want to go on Star Wars, huh?
Like a ship that large is going to have some kind of gravity.
Yeah, maybe. But, Okay, so Baghead777 says Tico meme is dead now. So yeah, I think maybe it's time to put Tico memes to bed. Let's see. Throw some other good comments here. A Micro Toast says, "Is the Futurist webcomic available anywhere?" You know what? I should release that stuff this month. Okay, Micro Toast. I will do that, ma'am. I will do that for you.
I think we've got like 5 or 6 strips, right?
4 or 5 strips, and then we had a couple in the can that were like we had kind of sketched out.
Yeah, in a landscape, beautiful landscape format, and the art is pretty fresh on that.
So we've had 3 people in here, Patrick, telling you that you're looking real jacked today.
Well, that's the shirt. I think the shirt just wrinkles under my folds.
And a couple of people have told me that I'm looking real jacked today. So thank you, everyone. You are all looking real jacked today. So this is another meme I see going around. I saw it first on Ethan's channel, and he just kept reading it out. He was going, "Oh, thank you, thank you, yeah, thank you." And then it's kind of become this big thing. I think a gentleman by the name of Booker T goes around in the comments telling everyone they look real jacked today. I think it's beautiful because it makes everybody feel good, and it also reminds them that they should go to the gym and remain jacked and healthy and beautiful. So thank you, Booker T. I think you were the starter of this meme. Perhaps I'm wrong, but now everybody says it, and everybody's looking real jacked today. So I love that meme. Yes, somebody says, I think a guy named Booker T came up with it. Yeah, so I think this is Booker T's doing.
That should just be your sign off going forward, man. Stay jacked.
What's that?
I said, yeah, that should be your sign off going forward. Just say, stay jacked, and then
stay jacked. I like it. I think it's cool because it's persuasion technique in many ways. I don't know if they thought this through, but you're making someone feel good, and then you're telling them that you're just also reminding them that they should stay committed to the gym. Here, yeah, it's an impressive bark you have there.
Sorry. I tried to insulate the conference from Heidi, but
oh, that's okay. I haven't met your new dog yet. Somebody says, "Jim, say it ain't so." Yeah, you have to go to the gym, Jimmy. We all have to stay jacked and healthy. Let's see. I'm scrolling through. Everybody's talking about Booker T now, which I think is great. Somebody says it looks like 50% of this chat is Ethan addicts looking for a meme fix for the day. Yeah. Tippy Tail McKitty says Ethan is the #1 Red Rooster salesman. Yeah, Ethan's doing a bang-up job. Ethan has become a very close friend of mine over the last several months. We have been talking more and more. We've been friendly for a long time. I met Ethan when I was trying to break into comic books, and he always had some nice words to say to me when I was carrying my portfolio through Artist Alley. Yeah. Elizabeth tells me Ethan is going on in 45, so we've got so we won't cross our streams, I guess. Yeah, Ethan's always been really nice to me, and then we became friends over the internet over the last several years, and then we've kind of been talking more over on the phone as we both went through some similar trials and tribulations in the realm of comic books. So I know what his family has been through. He knows what my family has been through. And so we began to bond over this mutual experiences. And now we're bonding over mutual successes, Patrick. So what do you think about what's going on? Let's talk. I think we've explored the Futurist as far as we can really explore it, at least this go around. So you've always been a comic book fan and a fan of comic book arts and creators and whatnot. But you're not inside the business per se, but you know a few people, like you've met some of my friends that are in the comic book business and whatnot. So you kind of are on the margins of comic books in some ways. What's your perspective? Well, I prefer, like, maybe I was going to say you've got the 40,000-foot view, like you're way up in the sky looking down on us plebs. So what's your take on the gestalt of comic books over the last several months?
Man, you know, it's become one of those things where it was very hard. Like when I was a new comic book fan, it was when I left Japan. I moved back stateside. My family moved back stateside from Japan, and then one of my dad's military buddies, he was also moving, and then he had a big box of comic books he didn't want to take with him, so he just said, "Hey, here you go," and so he gave them to my dad. My dad gave them to me, and that was it. And when I was living in San Diego, California, I started buying comic books. Started with Wolverine #1. Was like the first comic book that I bought on my own for me. And there was in all media, and that, I guess that's a little bit of background as far as like when I got started in, you know, when I got interested in comic books. But no matter what media it is, I'm always like I'm very particular about what it is I'm consuming. Movies, novels, TV series, and comic books. I'm looking for things that scratch a very particular itch, and I have in the last several years, you know, I've just found that there's less and less on the shelf that is doing that, and there's a lot of, and what I'm seeing now is like this move towards this effort to build up these independent properties is really where it's at, and it's encouraging because I know like I can find somebody. I think it was Clive Barker who once said, no matter what you make, no matter what you create, somewhere in the world there's a market for it. And so I'm very much encouraged by the fact that there are people who are more and more taking initiative to go outside the industry to grow these independent properties, because I think that's more often than not where I'm going to find what really appeals to me. And one of the reasons why we started working together and collaborating is because I wasn't satisfied with what I was able to buy and consume. Like as a consumer, I wasn't able to get the things that were really going to be entertaining to me. So that's when you turn your attention towards like, well, if I'm not going to be able to find it somewhere, I'm gonna have to make it. And you know, I mean, it's less and less. You know, it happens less and less now that you know work has consumed such a larger part of my life. But I'm starting to find a better balance there, and so hopefully it'll swing back the other way. But you know, I'd get these ideas all the time, and share those with you. And I know I'm not the only one. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are just they're buzzing with ideas, and they just need a medium to get them out there. So this initiative to get independent, you know, homegrown properties up off the ground, get them funded, and get those circulating is enormously encouraging. I mean, I'm really it's extremely exciting the way that these campaigns have been going, the kind of support that we've been in there. Christine and I were talking about them earlier, and about the just the pricing model that goes along with them. And in that discussion, you know, Christine was telling me, she was like, well, you know, the people that are supporting these things are, you know, they're believers. They believe in what's being done. It's not just a matter of, you know, oh, you know, I really like this concept. It's not just a matter of that. It's also a matter of people who are willing to support the concept itself, the idea of creators being able to fund and promote their books, and their independently owned properties in a media that's outside the mainstream, which really just seems to take things and twist them up, and in a lot of cases, and this is certainly not a universal rule, but you know, there's a lot of material out there on shelves that's just not good in any way, shape, or form.
I think that might be the understatement of the night. If the audience that's materializing under our feet, under Ethan's feet, and others is any indication. So there, I mean, there's a saying in business, and then you know, we graduated college as artists and learned business. So did Elizabeth and myself. We just had to, especially being business owners and freelancers, we didn't want to get taken advantage of as we sat down and learned business. So you find a gap. You find a gap in the market and you fill it, and that's where you make money. And so, if there's a gap in the entertainment market, if there is a lack of professionalism, if there is a desire for direct audience engagement, if there's a desire for a certain set of properties that are striking a tone or missing a broad audience, I think there are big gaps. I think there are big gaps in the potential audiences for comic books. And it is I'm kind of betting the farm. I'm kind of betting the farm that we can fill the gaps, and that there is a much greater audience beyond what is just materializing in terms of what's going on here on Indiegogo and YouTube and stuff like that, and even on Twitter and all that stuff. That there is a general audience for just for grabs. If you can just grab their attention in some way, if you can get these products in front of them, they have been ignored. They've been ignored. There's an audience that's been ignored, and I know they're out there.
Well, it's about, I mean, the mainstream industry. What's fascinating to me about what's happening with these independent comic books and the success they're finding on crowdfunding is it's not about market share, because when you talk about the big publishing houses, you really have to look at them in terms of their market share. This is really happening outside of it. There's really not an impact on the market share when you're doing a crowdfunding comic book like this. What's measurable though is the audience interest and where that interest is going, and what people are willing to do to grow a product or a property, that what they're willing to do, what they're willing to pay to grow a product and a property that they believe in a medium that in some cases seems to be very broken. The market itself is gonna calibrate. It's not like those big companies are dead. It's not like that industry on the whole is dead and the way they do business is going away. The market recalibrates, and I think in American comic books we see it happens like every decade or so. It seems like comic books are really good for a while, and then all of a sudden they're real stinkers and they're circling the drain and nobody knows what's going to happen, and then something happens and the market recalibrates. They find a better way. And I think that we're in like this current crowdfunding initiative with the success you guys have found, and I think we'll continue to find, is really just kind of showing the market how they need to recalibrate to their audience.
Yeah, I think it's sending out some pretty strong market signals. It will be interesting to see how sort of legacy comics evolve over the next year, to see if they respond to the market signals. And it's not us, it's not we the creators that are sending the signals. I think we're just responding to the signals being emitted by the audience. Mm-hmm. And since we are adept and adroit and sort of had our backs against the wall, especially Ethan and I, we're harnessing that and responding to it in a sincere way for sure. And that's important. I think the sincerity and professionalism is very, very important. When I think a lot of the larger institutions, the legacy books and legacy companies, I think primarily Marvel seem a little bit less sincere. And that is, I think that's clear in many of the conversations I've had with fans and customers of these products over the last several months and years, for sure. Guys and ladies that have walked away from comics because they're not feeling served are just entire markets. What's that?
Yeah. I said I'm one of them.
Yeah, yeah. You're one of them too, and my buddy Chris, and many, many more used to be big spenders on comic books, and now we're just, I think, looking for a chance to feel that youthful enthusiasm again, and to share these passions with their kids. That's what I think. Let's see. Muskie Elon says 100% correct today. Thank you. And you are looking real jacked today. Jesse Miller says, you guys have a heart. The big companies have lost theirs. Well, maybe they'll find it again, it's, I think they can move, they can respond, they can change. If they don't want to change, I think that there will be more and more. Look, I know I had a conversation with a big time artist just the other day, and they're watching talented men and women. I say this on every broadcast now, just about talented men and women who are kind of afraid to step out and do this, because if you do this, it's kind of crazy. You step out, you start engaging the audience in a positive way. You burn a bridge. You burn a bridge. To some people, there are no roads back from stepping out on your own and doing something that creates positive engagement with the community and finding success in it. They feel that there's no road back from that, and it to some roads may close for you, and they probably will. But they're watching. Talented men and women are watching what's been going on here, and they want to step out and do the same thing. I believe there's all this talk of gatekeeping and whatnot in comic books and whatnot, but I think what we want to do is just open a gate. Build a greener pasture. So it's like we're very much kind of in a frontier here, clearing the forest, homesteading, right? And then so we can open up a gate to a greener pasture of connecting with the audience in a positive way, of building at the type of products that aren't available to customers that are being underserved or not served at all. And if the money, if the profit materializes under the initiatives, and the enthusiasm materializes, then other artists are going to say, okay, I'm done being over here. I'm going to come over there and be with you guys and you gals and with your audience and where your party is, where your enthusiasm is, and where the audience is responding in kind.
Well, gatekeeping presumes that you even want what's on the other side of the gate, or that what you want is only found on the other side of the gate. And what you guys are showing is that what you want is where you are. I mean, you can achieve that, without having to confront that obstacle.
Yeah, Jimmy Ortiz says, no, Marvel and DC will go back once they see what you guys are doing. That may be true. That may be true. I'm not saying they won't. They are big ships, and big ships. The bigger the ship, the longer the turnaround time. Is that right, Patrick?
Well, yeah. It takes a long time to steer a big ship. Yeah, that's what I've. So some permutation of that phrase. But but I think I think he has a point, and this is kind of what I said earlier, that to some degree the market will recalibrate, but it's going to recalibrate in a very different environment.
Yeah, and in the meantime,
it's not going to be the same. Every time it happens, it kind of resets the stage, but in a way where things are a little different. Last time it was the Image in the 90s, and so comics recalibrated after that. And then, but then it's like you can recalibrate to the market, but the environment is different. Now you're dealing with the market share split's completely different than it used to be. So it'll take some time. They'll recalibrate for a while, but I mean, just because it's cyclical, in another decade there'll be another big shift. There'll be another crisis of some kinds.
Let's see. Okay, John Lemus has a plug to make. It says, please, so do this. Please check out when you're done with this broadcast, and after you've checked out Red Rooster Golden Age. It says, please check out DS Alfine on Kickstarter. There are 15 hours left to back this wonderful comic. So you heard it here. John Lemus believes in this comic book on Kickstarter. DS Alfine. Did I pronounce that right? So, okay, you can check that out. We want to see all kinds of comics. Feel Cool says, homesteading is an appropriate metaphor for what this is. Yeah, I think so. I think I like it. Maybe that'll have some legs. So I have to kind of scan through the comments at first, so as make sure it's something I want or should or is appropriate to cover out loud on the channel. So patient with me. Last comment, Denali says, aside from you being the artist for properties, but are there any connections between the Futurists and Red Rooster? No, these were properties. The Futurists I created with Patrick. He is my 50% partner in the Futurist, co-creator of these characters in this universe. The Red Rooster I did kind of wholly on my own, although I'd take my ideas to Patrick every now and again. But but there is a possibility that we said earlier that these worlds, it's not impossible that our they could be in the same universe.
At this point, I'd say it's pretty tongue in cheek, but yeah, it's that was definitely never planned.
No, never planned.
Yeah, no, Red Rooster is all you, man.
Yeah, we never discussed it until even live on the chat tonight. So
yeah.
Unknown Uis. I'm just going to start nicknaming you guys because I can't pronounce these things. Boycott all Time Warner products and shun anyone who doesn't. Well, I don't support boycotts. Are shunning. I think, you know, I think you do you. That's not my style. Jimmy Ortiz says DC bought Wildstorm. Do you Marvel or DC buying you guys out when you prove to be successful? Okay, I'll rephrase. Do you think Marvel or DC might buy us out when we prove to be successful? Jimmy, I think everything has its price, but my price is always very, very high.
Fair enough, right? Everyone has their price. Yeah. Nice. No, I just think it's important that you don't set the pretense right there where you're like, no, I'll never sell out. Yeah. Just tell everybody right now, it's like, I might sell out at some point. If the price is right. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I don't come cheap anymore. Not anymore. Let's see. Somebody's making a diversity in comics joke, scrolling down some more. Sorry, cough, cough. That's very funny. So if I'm doing what Diversity in Comics does on his show. He'll scroll and try to get everybody's chats in, and he coughs all the time. He really should get that checked out. He was in the Iraq War, so I worry that he might maybe have. He says it's just because he looks down and it makes him cough. He's looking down in his lap. That might be true. Sometimes that makes me cough too. But yeah. Hey, Mitch, are you going to make the Order of the Phoenix tier closed? Or how about a 250? Oh, you're talking about the Order of the Dawn. So Chaos Risen has a question. No, you can, the Order of the Dawn tier is a tier on our Indiegogo campaign for Red Rooster. You can buy that. You get a Order of the Dawn lapel pin. It's going to look very sophisticated, die struck. You can walk into any executive boardroom and everybody's going to know that you're part of a super secret society. They will all ask you about it and how they can become members. You will receive a certificate of induction or authenticity as member of the Order of the Dawn. You will also receive a name check or a mention in the back of the book as a big time backer of the Red Rooster Indiegogo campaign, and you will be forever remembered. Name etched in stone or in this case pulp for all time as a member of Red Rooster history, as a first arrival on our homesteading initiative. Rodwell Stevens says vote with your cash. Yeah, I think that is a universal statement. That's better than a boycott, I think. Vote with your cash, I think, is the way to go. Hi, Mitch. Can you tell us about the art style in Red Rooster? It's just going to be my style. I'm not trying to do anything real fancy. It might have some washes to it, which I have done in the past.
That is something I've been curious about myself because I've really, I've seen stylistically, I've seen your art evolve, since pretty much, 2-3 years into college. So I'm pretty curious to see what the finish on this looks like. I mean, I know it's going to be fantastic no matter what, but believe it or not, along with that short story that I found, I also found, what was that comic book that we were working on? The Hive. Do you remember that? The Hive stories?
That went back before Futurists. That's an old one. Yeah.
It is old, but still fresh. Like your work is always fresh.
Well, thank you.
But yeah, I've been pretty curious about what the finish on the Red Rooster is going to look like. I'm excited about it.
Somebody says pin or pin because I misspelled in my Indiegogo. I wrote pin. You get a lapel pin as in something you put on your lapel with a needle on it and it clips and all that fancy stuff. I misspelled it one time on the Indiegogo, and now they are never letting me live it down. But you're not going to get a pen like a pen you write with. You're going to get a pin that you can put on your lapel. So yeah,
important
you will.
distinction to make, considering the prototype.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to. But at this point, Cecil. Have you met Cecil yet? In our Okay, Cecil is Dick in Comics. Means diversity, inclusion, compassion, and kindness. He is the antidote to Diversity in Comics, the other YouTube channel, and is sort of our revolving guest, hilarious guest host on many of our YouTube shows now. And he's become a friend. His name is Cecil. And anyway, he is teasing me relentless over this. And he's become everybody's favorite foil. So Cecil's gag is, I'll let you in on, you should look him up. He has a YouTube channel. It's called DICK and Comics, which stands for Diversity, Inclusion, Compassion, and Kindness. Cecil has a shtick that, well, I don't know if it's a shtick, maybe he's real. Cecil's thing is he believes that the modern era of comics is the greatest era of comics, and that books like contemporary Marvel comic books like Iceman, America Chavez, the West Coast Avengers are some of the greatest works of comic book history. And he will stack those books when they come out against classics like Watchmen #1, or Your First Comic Book, Wolverine #1, or Jonah Hex #1. And he will do a side-by-side review. He usually deems the old comics to be either misogynist or racist or problematic in one form or another. And they get beaten in a duel to the death by a brand new Marvel comic. And then he shreds, he shreds the old one in his shredder. Live on camera.
It's like a classic. A
classic, like Watchmen #1. And Jonah Hex #1, and many others. That's his show. You need to watch it. They're hilarious, if not tragic. Bethany Fryrick says, "Lol, Patrick's reaction is priceless. Cecil is good in small doses." I think everyone concurs. Arctic Eric Hutflez says Cecil is the Don DeLuise of comic books. He sounds a lot like Don DeLuise. You need to check out his channel. Elizabeth was watching. Yeah, she was watching these for a couple of days, and she's like, "Have you heard of this guy, Dick in Comics?" I was like, I've seen him around like on Twitter." And she's like, "Oh my gosh, he has a YouTube channel, and it is hilarious." It is hilarious. So Elizabeth discovered diversity. Cecil, he goes by Cecil now, basically.
Man,
now this has become a Cecil chat.
Yeah, that's high praise to be the Don DeLuise of anything. I haven't heard Don DeLuise. His name hasn't been brought up in a long time. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, he is here, and he is around. So he drops in Ethan's live streams quite a bit. I've been on with him a few times. He is actually a very brilliant man, and very hilarious. I don't want to spoil his shtick because everybody in the chat knows Cecil and knows his shtick. So you can discover it on your own time, and then we can reconvene. I'll bring you on live with Cecil at some point. Cautionary Comics says everyone loves Cecil. I don't believe that to be true. Ben Henderson of Cautionary Comics is here, everyone. He has a book called Ravage, Kill All Men that is ending in, I think, a few days. What's that?
Yeah, I've heard of that. I actually went to that. I went to that site for the fundraiser.
Yeah, I recommend backing that project. I like the pitch. So it's like two army. I might butcher it. So bitch, I'm Ben. I said my name and Ben's name together. So Ben, I'm gonna butcher your pitch, but it's basically two army vets find themselves washed, marooned on a fantasy island, and it sounds very interesting. But the island turns out to be full of Amazon and a vicious Amazon tribe, which sounds to me both harrowing, sexy, and hilarious. And I believe there might be dinosaurs involved and all this other kind of stuff. So it sounds like, classic comic book, pulpy, grindhouse kind of stuff, which I think is basically that. So you might want to check out Ravage. It sounds really cool. We backed it. Dad joke guy, I need to know if Mitch is going on convention tour soon. Elizabeth and I have stepped back from conventions over the last few years. One, we got tired of them. And then after 2016 and what happened, we were not comfortable going to shows.
Yeah.
There were threats of violence towards me and sexual violence towards my wife. And I doubt any of those would have been manifest, but I don't want her to be subject to anything nasty. I can be quite protective. So, but I do want to step out and do conventions again and greet this new, wonderful, and beautiful audience that is backing our campaigns. Let's see. Scrolling through the chat now, everybody's talking about Cecil. Cecil, brilliant in what dimension? he divides people. Cecil. It's a love-hate thing. Somebody says, "Is it a stick?" I'm not so sure. I think Cecil may be just totally genuine, and he is a comedic genius. Yeah, I think so. He also should tone down the alcohol. He drinks too much on the air. He'll get pretty trashed. I've never seen him totally trashed, but he does choke back a few martinis live on YouTube. He said, "Dad joke guy says the best episode of Dick and Comics is the one where is the squirrel girl in his garage." So I don't know that I've seen that. I don't know. Have you seen the latest incarnations of Squirrel Girl, Patrick, for Marvel Comics? Okay. Yeah, Patrick, you have stepped away from comics for too long. They have become very interesting again. So you should look up Squirrel Girl. The most recent. It's an interesting look. I'll say that. So Denali says, "Would you be distributing zero pipeline distribution, or would you be having comics available at comic book brick and mortar shops?" Denali, I think that's a great question. Right now we're doing zero pipeline distribution is kind of what it's being called, where you can buy these comic books on Indiegogo. We'll fulfill these orders on our own, or maybe hire a service to do so, and ship it right to your doorstep. So you don't have to go to a comic book store to get our comic books right now. But I don't think this is a state of permanence. I think we want to get. I think the books have to become at lower cost. They have to sell in higher numbers, and we have to get shipping and distribution costs down so that the books can arrive either at your doorstep or at your favorite comic book store or shop or place of retail choice or convenience, as conveniently as possible to you. So there's a shifting set of dynamics within comic books. I don't think things are in any way static right now. And I think there will be an exciting couple of years ahead for comic books where things are going to change quite a bit. How do you feel about that, Patrick? What do you think about the future of the comic book business and the model that it is currently in? Do you think there's a paradigm shift going on?
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned earlier, I mean, the industry has to rebalance from the extremes that it finds itself in at the moment, and just like it has in the past. You guys are showing, this new frontier. You're showing a new distribution model, a new funding model for these projects, and yeah, I think on the whole, the industry is going to have to adapt to that in some way, especially with. I mean, I know obviously you guys, this being kind of a grassroots thing, you're in the process of building it, currently, but in the future, yeah, I think they need to adapt to, and I think it could be done perhaps more efficient. There's a lot of waste in the comic book industry as it is. Historically, there's been a lot of waste in the comic book industry. It's always been a business model that has a high percentage of loss. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a model that, while it probably won't be fully adopted in the future, that maybe there's some kind of hybrid state of this model that would be more efficient, more cost effective, result in less loss. Yeah. And then, of course, if that's the case, I don't know where a retailer really fits in to that model. Mm-hmm. But surely the industry has to change in some way.
Yeah, I don't know what the future holds for comic book stores, the brick and mortar comic book stores. I think the retailers, in many ways, I feel bad for them. I think they've been treated very unfairly by the model, just by the model of the business, it, by the diamond monopoly, and so diamond is only fulfilling. In many ways, I blame Marvel, mostly Marvel, and then DC. But it's yeah, I think the retailers just have been treated very, very unfairly. Also, customers are they're used to point and click purchasing and having things delivered to their doorstep by Amazon Prime now and many other types of services. Walmart.com is another one. And the nature of the consumer habit is changing. People crave familiar experiences. They like familiarity. That's just human nature. So you can become familiar with your comic book store, but there isn't sort of a cross, the difference between other comic book stores can be quite dynamic sometimes, the type of experience, the type of store. It seems like they're, anyway, I just think we're definitely at a crossroads, and there are problems to be solved, and I think money to make to solve them at this point. That's for sure.
Well, the retailers get stuck. I mean, they get sandbagged by product that doesn't sell.
Yeah, and multiple covers, and they do make some money off these kind of multiple cover things. I don't know. I'm not a retailer, so I don't know. But I do talk to retailers when I do have the opportunity. I try to ask them a lot of questions because their business is very important to me.
Yeah, I've known. Of course, when I lived in San Diego and I collected regularly, I got a lot of FaceTime with the store owner there, and then I had a former teacher, and I've had a couple of other friends since that have actually gotten into the business and tried to start like a comic book retailer. And based on their stories, their insights, and then just personal revelations from conversations I've had with people who had been in the business for a long time, you come away with the impression that for every retailer that you've seen, like every comic book store you see, there's a storage unit equally as big, just full of unsold product. And those guys are, they're having to make their rounds at conventions, whenever they can, trying to offload, product that didn't sell.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's historically that's how it's been. But now we have new processes. You mentioned Amazon as a source that they'll print on demand effectively. Somebody buys something, they print on demand, they ship it to them. But
the problem with Amazon and comics is comics, because so you and I are from the same generation. I'm assuming many people in the chat are probably in their 30s, late 20s to probably in their 30s or close to our age, which is early 40s, and very early 40s. We're still young. We discovered comic books, correct me if I'm wrong, but like in a drugstore, a grocery store, or some other place of random happenstance where we just happen to be drug along with our mothers, primarily, or fathers. So for me, it was like a discovery, like discovering a new world, like a new thing to learn, that was colorful and beautiful and aspirational. That created a sense of desire and nostalgia within me that I wanted to, cultivate and indulge myself in. And I think in many ways, with Amazon, you can't pick up a comic book, flip through it, smell it, read it, touch it, and just really indulge in it, and then covet it and want to take it home with you. So I think part of the big problem with comic books and comic book stores, not blaming comic book stores or store owners, that I want to make that totally clear. I sympathize with these people. Is that kids just don't randomly walk into a comic book store unless they've had some prior engagement with comic books. So it's like putting a lure on a fish hook with all the fish that are in the stream. You have to have the sweetest bait, and the fish have to see it, it's sparkling in the distance, and be drawn to it, and then you catch the fish. The comic books have to be beautiful and creative and engaging, and you have to catch the audience by putting the product up in front of them in a way that they'll find it almost by accident. And that becomes very, very difficult to do. I think part of what is going on YouTube, and I think that Ethan is the proof case for this, is kids are on YouTube. So if we can't put the product in front of them, we can't put the product right in front of them, we can say, hey, we create comic books. We're engaging, funny. Ethan's hilarious. Dynamic personalities. Yeah, we can present. We can talk about our stories. We can become personalities with you. We can engage the audience, like by responding to chat and talking about what the audience wants to talk about from the perspective of a creator of comic books or someone who's spent a lot of their time in life in drawing and crafting stories. So we can engage, and kids are on YouTube. Kids, like young kids, are on YouTube, like high school kids, junior high kids. That's the age group we're trying to hit. But I think the next step is actually getting product in retail spaces where kids are again, and I think that's super duper important. That's my pitch anyway. You guys can take it up with me on the chat. I think Patrick's just nodding his head in agreement.
No, I do agree. I don't know how. Like I said, I've kind of been out of the retail space for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm very. I don't buy really even books. When it comes to novels, I don't buy them without actually researching it first.
Yeah.
Because the amount of time that I have to devote to that media, like novels and comic books, I just want to make sure that what I'm getting into as an investment and in forms of entertainment is really what I'm looking for. Because there's so much out there right now that it's just I don't want to waste time and money on.
On crap. I agree with you. Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and time is more precious, and there is more media competing for your time, and I think that's one of the reasons. That's definitely one of the reasons I'm on YouTube and trying to really engage with the audience in a honest and fun and enthusiastic way, is because I believe we have great content. I want people to engage with our content. So I think by creating a personal relationship with the audience, you create a level of trust where they can say, I want to check out their content. I'm going to give their books a shot. And I think I'm going to love them. I'm going to wait and see, but I'm going to take a risk, buy the content. And if I love it, I'm going to tell all my friends, which is what I hope you do. Matt V, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I mean, just to YouTube as a medium, there's a couple of places where you can kind of create that. And we've spoken about this in terms of some of the ideas that we've tried to get off the ground in the past. That those first few pages, you're establishing a contract with the reader. This is the kind of story this is going to be. This is the tone of the narrative. This is what you can expect. You can foreshadow, what's to come, and that's one way you make that contract. The other way would be through YouTube and engaging directly with the audience. This is a place where you can establish that contract with them and help to set their expectations for what they might be willing to invest in.
Okay, I'm going to read a couple of chats here. Let me pull my window back up. Oh, what did I do with it? Patience. Oh, here we go. Okay. Matt V has made this post a couple times, so he wants me to read it. If you and any of your Comicsgate allies want to do I'm going to call them friends, my friends, want to do a con in Philly or NYC, if necessary, I can assist with tight security. Matt, I appreciate that. I guess you are probably real jacked every day. So, Jack Harper says, my kids love Cecil. I wouldn't bring my kids anywhere near Cecil, Jack. What are you thinking? McGregorable J says, when will the Futurists be available? That is, we're just focused on Red Rooster for now. I got to see how fast this artist can draw the book, what his schedule is going to be like. Oh, crap, now you know it's a man. All right, I've eliminated half the world now. Or over half, so you can deduce from there. Army Vet Rod Sketch Therapy says, you can make a tier for comic shops, 6-piece tier, then let them resale, 6 to 10 piece. So it's, yeah, if you are a comic book store, you can check out our Indiegogo campaign for Red Rooster. We have a 6-piece and a 10-piece buckets of chicken. there is an asterisk that says the bucket is not included. You just get 6 or 10 signed comic books at a discount from the $25 buy-in price for one. They're all signed by the entire creative team. So if you're a retailer, I didn't call this the retailer package because retailers have their own. I don't want to, I'm not saying this is a retailer package, but if you want bulk or you want multiple comics, there is a tier available to you. I think there are many people for many reasons. They might have 6 grandkids.
If you want to gift issues at a slight markup.
Yeah. I suppose. Yeah, exactly. But I'm just not calling them retailer packages, but I think that's inferred. There you go. There is a 6-piece bucket of chicken and a 10-piece bucket of chicken. Buckets not included. So those packages are for you. All comic books are signed. So if you think your customers will love it, or you could just really, truly believe in this comic book and want to read one and lock 9 away in a safe and crack them open in 10 years when they're worth $1,000 pop, you may do that as well. That's what I'd recommend. Okay. McGregor will ask, "Is it David Finch, our mystery artist?" I'm gonna say no. I've met David Finch, but I don't really know him. John Piner says, "Get the Order of the Dawn tier for Red Rooster." I agree. I think that is the best tier. Obviously, it's not for everyone since it is more expensive and very kind of exclusive. But if you are a man or woman of means, and you have the money to flex to make a statement in comic books, and you want to be part of our cool secret society and get name checked in the back of the book and get a head sketch and the sketchbook and the Futurist poster that we're going to deliver at 90,000 copies. At $90,000. I believe that package is for you, and it's very fun, and you can tell all your friends. You had something to say, Patrick? I interrupted you, I think.
No, I have forgotten what it was on the other side.
Matt V says he's fairly jacked, a work in progress. Keep at it. Yeah, keep going to the gym. How long is it going to take Alex Ross? Somebody says. No, I think it's safe to say that you are joking. Eric, somebody says Mitch is Thanos. Yeah, I don't know where. I'll embrace that meme, I guess.
You didn't realize this on social media? You're now the Thanos
of comic books. Somebody says Neil Adams, Jim Lee. I gotta say though, when you hear what this artist is, you're talking about somebody that has merit. Like, I know we're laughing because these are big names in comic books, but this artist is not a laughing matter, is it, Patrick?
No. I am super excited about this artist. Yeah, I was really I was surprised but very, very psyched.
Albino Thunderbuns, I guess Mert Does Gaming had a question, wanted us to talk about the Futurist. Albino Thunderbuns responds, says, Mitch and Patrick broke down the story and character details, and it was fantastic. Watch the replay. So yes, the first half of this chat, we talked pretty much in depth about the Futurist and its history, characters in the world. So yeah, you can go back and listen to that in the morning or later this evening. Probably a better thing to listen to than Comic Artist Pro Secrets. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Ethan's really great. He's done me a lot of great favors. Let's see. Let's see. Scrolling through the chat. Jamie Ramirez says, I believe GameStop stores have a plan to start selling comic books. I believe that is true. Yes, that is true. But I don't know that that's a permanent situation. I think, do people, I mean, I do see people going to GameStop. I don't go there very often.
I do.
You do? Okay.
Not very often, no. But I mean, there is a, I guess you could say that given the kind of merchandise that they carry, that comic books might seem like a natural, like an expansion of that. I guess what you call like diversifying your core competence.
Yeah.
Because you're selling, you have video games and really the boundaries between popular media now is being blurred, more and more. And so obviously there are going to be licenses, video game licenses from comic books. But yeah, there's so much stuff in GameStop, and I honestly don't know how much of it actually sells.
Yeah, that's what my thought is imagine people do their research and try to, they might rather have they research their games on the internet, like they watch people play them on YouTube, they listen to the reviews and whatever on the internet, and I imagine they just order them and have them delivered to their doorstep.
Yeah, they just they have a lot of merchandise I know that doesn't move.
Yeah, I'll just put it this way: I am not a stockholder in GameStop, nor do I plan to be. That's where I'll leave that. All right. Somebody says Jawbreakers at Starbucks. That would be amazing. Sure, put comic books in Starbucks. I don't know that I don't know that that's a perfect fit. But you got to put comic books where kids are going to be.
People wouldn't buy them; they would just read them.
That's exactly it. Yeah, just like they. I agree. Yeah, that's kind of where I stopped myself in mid-sentence and almost said the same thing.
Yeah.
All right. Would love to see Comicsgate comics centralized at brick and mortar stores. Cyberfrog, Kill All Men, Red Rooster, Jawbreakers, The Futurists, all near each other on the shelves. Well, wouldn't that be beautiful? Thank you, Balaclades. Scrolling through the chat here. Yeah, I appreciate you guys for hanging in. We've maintained I think 150 viewers this whole chat. I think at max I saw we were probably around 170. That's pretty good for a Saturday night. People are hanging with their friends, a lot of people, and I imagine some of these people are probably playing video games and listening to us jabber on about comic books and creativity and process and the Futurists and Red Rooster. So I really do appreciate it, and thanks for giving Patrick a warm welcome.
Yeah.
Will the chicken grease get all over the comics? You should just, wipe your hands with a napkin. Don't be a brute. Will Red Rooster come out quarterly or yearly? See, the vision I have, this is, like I said, we're in a new frontier. We're homesteading new territory. We can't see how all this will shake out, but I see a path forward for quarterly comic books that are extended in length. I think that makes life better for creators. And it gives more, you can indulge more in the story for the customers. So I think it's an interesting model. Maybe I can get Travis Charest, or is it, maybe I've met him a couple times. He signed a Space Girl book for me. Super talented, and I'm a super big fan, and so is Patrick.
Yeah.
Albino Thunderbun says, bro, you're going to be so stoked after you watch the replay. I was shocked how much info they gave. The Futurists is an epic story. So we have sold some books, Patrick, far in advance of their release. We just want to get people interested. You know what I really want to do, like with the Red Rooster art contest, I want people to be enthusiastic about Red Rooster, of course, but I want kids and aspirational artists and even grown-ups who just want to indulge a hobby to do it and have fun and get better at their craft. And so with chats like these, even if you don't buy the Futurists when it comes out or whatever, you will anyway. If we can inspire in you a love of creation, and indulge in, I think it's a human desire, and much like the way all children draw or try to draw at some point. But I think creating a story, a character, a world, especially in collaborating with someone and doing so, whether or not you ever release a book, it's a rewarding experience in and of itself. Somebody else came in late. They're going to go back and watch it. Booker T says, do you think Red Rooster should be more jacked? He's got a pretty lean build. He's plenty jacked. He doesn't need to be any more jacked than he is.
maybe the Red Rooster of the '70s, like the Pumping Iron days.
Yeah, a Venice Beach Red
Right.
Rooster. He was peers with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he lost the role to Conan, and then was spurned and and then became a vigilante.
Lost out on
Okay.
the role for the Hulk.
Yeah.
Uh,
Albino Thunderbuns he or she is loving the Futurists. The time period of the Futurists is so fertile for storytelling. Besides the Romantic period, it's also when science fiction and horror genres were invented.
yeah.
Yeah. So we've also described this book as how did we just? It was Jules Verne meets something else. What was that?
I don't remember the something else.
Maybe it was. It was. I mean, it was Peter Pan meets Apocalypse Now in the vein of Jules Verne. That's how it
That's
is
what
on
it
the
was.
website. That's how I have it written on Mary Muse, mary-muse.com. Cecil is here. We have conjured Cecil. Welcome, Cecil. Uh, you can see him in the chat. Cecil is Dickon Comics. He is not driving tonight, so he's probably already 6 martinis deep, or on his boat. He's always sailboating. I think his sister is very rich. Yeah. Everyone's saying hello to Cecil. Hollywood Hulk Hogan is back. He thanks Booker T. He says your T levels are really good, and everyone is looking very jacked. So I've described, yeah, back to that. I love trying to get these descriptions distilled. We talked about this early on. I'm probably going to end the chat here pretty soon.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm going to just, in brief, I've described Red Rooster as Norman Rockwell meets H.P. Lovecraft. And that sort of ignited people's imaginations. And when I mentioned that, they're like, well, that sold me, like right there. I don't really need to know anything about the plot. And we've detailed that out before. And the Futurists is Peter Pan meets Apocalypse Now in the vein of Jules Verne. So to me, that concoction, it's like a cocktail. Like you mix it just right, and you're like, ooh, I got to have me some of that. So it paints a very different picture from Red Rooster, but also one that I really believe in, and I think is enigmatic and a world I want to explore, and I hope you do too.
Yeah. Those are very the kind of thematic mashup for Red Rooster. The Cthulhu aspect was or Cthulhu H.P. Lovecraft aspect was the piece of it that was missing from my earlier conception of it. But I mean, once you combined those two things, I mean, that's got such a nice icy hot, flavor to it.
Yeah, well, one you associate with, I love the irony of it because you associate one with a children's story, which is in many ways kind of I like Peter Pan a lot because it gives you a strange feeling when you watch it as a child, right? And it's also both a girl's property and a boy's property, so it can be indulged by, watched by all children, and you feel like it's kind of for you, and no matter your gender. So it's kind of universal thing to it, but it's this there is something, an undercurrent of something that's kind of disturbing in Peter Pan, and but you contrast that child's property, that child's cartoon kid story with Apocalypse Now, which is the exact opposite of a kid story, which obviously has its roots in the book Heart of Darkness, which I'm a big fan of. Yeah, I think it's the contrast of those two things that I find really compelling.
Yeah, it's that youthful adventure and magical themes, of Peter Pan contrasted by that dark, gritty, visceral Apocalypse Now. There's two things you wouldn't put next to the other, and we did that before. We kind of experimented with that as ways to generate ideas. That kind of thematic mashup. Take these two things, put them up together, and if it creates that weird kind of if they contrast just right, then you get these really neat word pictures, and it's almost like the entire the sense, the feeling, the flavor of that particular idea is somehow very palpable.
It's in the same way that like somebody, you're a little hungry for something, and somebody describes a recipe to you, and then your mouth waters, right?
Right.
Yeah. So does the same thing for your imagination, and that's the idea. Denali says, in the Futurists, will we have a Martin Sheen moment? What's the Martin Sheen moment? I mean, Teddy, with the guy with the golden clockwork arm, is our Martin Sheen character. He's the one that has this adventure, and the Commodore is our Marlon Brando. What was the name of his character? Kurtz. That's it, Kurtz. He was also Kurtz in Heart of Darkness as well. That was the name of the mystery man, antagonist or villain. So Cecil says he was boating all day. He just popped in, and now he's going to get in the shower. Good night, all. Good night, Cecil. We hardly met ye, but he said he's going to listen to the replay. Cecil has been very kind to us and has been pushing the Red Rooster on other channels he's been on. So we have one Cecil over for the Red Rooster. So if you want to see what Cecil loves, you can go and check out our Indiegogo campaign, Red Rooster Golden Age. Somebody says they're Googling Jules Verne. Well, you absolutely should. That's Rhaegar Targaryen. Rhaegar Targaryen has shown up.
Oh my gosh. Person of importance.
Yeah. That person left another comment here. Oh, he said, he or she said, guys, go see Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's good. I have heard good things. I'm excited. It's another, speaking of, we went into the Futurists thinking we wanted to tell stories about families, because in many ways that those are also, because your family is a story you're familiar with. It's starting from a point of familiarity, and then you put this big twist on it, and people want their families to be a loving, uncomfortable, and happy place. Not always the case, but journeying away from that or back towards that is always an adventure that people can relate to in their various struggles in life. So we have very intentionally made the Futurists a book about family. And to me, I mean, Ant-Man and Wasp is maybe, it looks in the premise of it, it looks like something that touches on those kinds of relationships. Mm-hmm. More so than a book like Avengers, which to me, I wasn't as crazy about, because it was just these heroes coming together, and it was a bit of a carnival of superheroes that were, but they're not family, right? They don't have those deep bonds of family. But it's a different kind of movie, obviously. But there's the potential of Ant-Man and Wasp is really great. Okay. John Piner says, congrats, Mitch. You have 2 epic stories to tell. Well, it's not just me. I have wonderful and brilliant collaborators like Patrick on the Futurists, and Mark Pellegrini on the Red Rooster, and my wonderful and lovely and talented wife, Elizabeth, and many other talented friends that give me wise counsel.
And you have more than 2.
I do have more than 2 friends.
More than 2. Well, no.
Thank you.
You have that in your favor as well. No. But more than 2 solid ideas, more than 2 solid stories to tell.
Yeah, we do.
These are just the farthest along, I think.
And Patrick has a lot of ideas on his own, and so here's what I want to do. I'm going to reveal a bit of my the course I'd like to chart forward. Patrick has many great ideas. We have many other great ideas we've worked on together and collaborated on, and I have my own ideas as well beyond what we've talked about tonight. What we're doing with Red Rooster is building a base. Building a capital base, a audience base, and a path forward for not just the Futurist project, but for other franchises and properties we want to breathe life into, stories that we want to tell, gaps in the market that we want to fill, customers that we want to serve, artists that we want to employ and showcase. And talent that we want to cultivate. I think the sky is the limit in what could be accomplished if you back our campaign, get excited for the Futurists. If Red Rooster's not for you, maybe you think a friend will like it, and you can pick up the base copy for a friend just in anticipation of getting the Futurist, if that happens to be more in your bag. But we were working very hard, very, very hard to make sure that there is a future, not for us, but for us, for me and Elizabeth in comic books, but for guys like Patrick who have brilliant stories to tell, Mark Pellegrini, who's a wonderful and talented script writer, and other artists and talents that have yet to be seen, but will be heard from soon. Let's see here. Martin Sheen is winning. I think you got it confused with the other Sheen that drinks tiger blood. And it's not a good role model. The Martin Sheen moment where he is out of his mind punching the mirror at the hospital. Hey, that's probably going to happen, or something very, I mean, that is Teddy. I mean, Teddy, you meet Teddy at the bottom of his life. So yes, we may not have that exact moment, Denali, but I think he's in many ways that character. What do you think, Patrick?
Yeah, no, he's definitely a guy who's he's cursed. he has trauma, but and doesn't necessarily know the he's grappling with these conflicts and does not know a way forward, a good way forward. So he's just going forward the best way he knows how, and kind of defaulting to his skill set. But at some point, that's really just kind of going through the motions, and you have to find something that's more meaningful, and that's really what's going to bring Teddy around. I think it's more meaningful.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, people are wondering what our villains are like in the future. Go back and listen to the first half of this chat. You'll learn all about the Futurists. Live Free says no reveals. He says keep it secret. JK says master plan time. I think they wanted me to keep my master plan secret. I didn't really reveal anything other than I want to tell more great stories and work with really talented people. I don't think that's a master plan or anything that needs to be kept secret. I think I'm pretty open about my ambitions in terms of bringing people great products and serving underserved markets and cultivating talent. Jesse Miller says it's inspiring. Thank you, Jesse. Rhaegar Targaryen is back. The creators of the 90s cartoon illustrated this point as well as they did in the comic book series. As they did in the I'm not sure I quite got that one. That's a great thing for you and your team. Can't wait to read your stories. Thank you very much, John Piner. Oliver Reeves says, I'm glad I've lived long enough to be able to sit in my living room and interact with comic creators talking about their books. Oliver, I'm incredibly honored. I am glad you're here with us. Honestly, it really does make us feel really good. It makes me feel great because we work on these things. Patrick, we've probably, I don't know how many thousands of hours we've clocked in, just me and you on the phone. Elizabeth has put up with me on the phone with Patrick for thousands of hours of chit-chatting about story ideas and the Futurists and other books. And it is really, really, really an honor to talk about it all in front of you and have you guys really care about it. 136 people are watching. We've been going on for quite a while, and I think probably Ethan's probably on at this point. Yeah, I mean, probably. Well,
want me to jump on his or?
He sends me invites occasionally, and people drop in and out of his live streams. So if he sent me an invite, I'll just drop in the middle. Let's see. Scrolling through the comments here. Dallas Deadeye, 500K stretch goal, a lock of Mitch's hair. Sure. Why not? Why not?
For $1 million, I'll give you a lock of mine. We'll make something happen.
Yeah. Yeah. For $500,000, I will get you a lock of the Pope's hair. I will make that happen. No promises. David Harrison says, I think at the end of your month, you will make around 200K, enough to start your projects, question mark. David, that would be a wonderful, wonderful thing. I keep my expectations low and my enthusiasm extremely high. And if that much money would, of course, be able to fund projects, we're probably going to run a similar type of campaign for the Futurists, and I know you guys are going to be really excited about this as well in the coming months. Army Vet Rod says, geeks geek out over stories for thousands of hours. That's what we do. Yes, that is what we do. The journey is more important than the destination. David Harrison has a political comment he wants to make. Fourth wave feminism is the destruction of the Western world. He has made his opinion known. What are your thoughts about the current depiction of Superman in DCU? Denali, I am not paying very close attention to DC Comics. I am so wrapped up in my own stuff right now. I've heard it's good.
Red Eye Superman, I think. Is that what that's about?
I'm not really sure.
I've seen some commentary online lately about something to do with their Red Eye Superman, but I'm kind of out of it myself. So
yeah,
maybe he just looks too menacing now, or maybe I'm just completely off base.
Dad joke guy has a dad joke for us. He says Mitch should donate hair for Ethan's head. Oh, not nice. I think Ethan and Patrick both share a long locks of flowing hair. So.
And as soon as we find them, you'll see.
Stretch goal, Cyber Mitch, and Eliza Mandroid Ashcan. That's so Cyber Frog and Salamandroid. Yeah, you didn't laugh. I thought it was funny. Did I create any Captain America characters for Marvel? No, not really. Not that I can remember. The Captain America world was always pretty fleshed out.
Yeah.
So I just rendered what they told me to render, and had a lot of fun doing it.
Hey, what about that? There was one guy that was he was like a Nazi captain or a Nazi.
Oh, I did create that character.
Face was like half of his face was like cybernetic or just really scarred.
Well, you're right. You know my work history better than I do, but yeah, for Captain America, Theater of War, Operation 0 Point, which is the biggest mouthful of a title I've ever had to work on.
He was the nemesis. He was like the big bad that issue, right?
Yeah, he was really cool. I mean, as a villain, he was cool. I mean, he wasn't cool because he was a Nazi. But yeah, that was a fun story written by Daniel Knopf, who also is known for writing some stuff for Hollywood. He did Carnival for HBO. He did Dracula series. What was it, about 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah. John Rhys Davies.
John Rhys Davies, yes, who played
so
Dracula. It was fun. I like that. And now what else is he doing now? I think he's doing something else now. He wrote me not long ago to reach out and touch base. So great guy. Watch his stuff. Read his comic books. That was probably the funnest comic book I ever drew because it involved around the Nazi Bell Project, which is this big conspiracy theory that Nazis had created an anti-gravity machine and they could operate UFOs. It's funny. It's fun. Conspiracy theories like that are fun and fantastic. And it's fun to see them rendered in comic books. So it was a lot of fun to draw. I don't believe any of that is true. I don't think that the Nazis had any secret UFOs. But it was fun to draw them. So yeah, I did create one Captain America character. I think he died in the end though. So that was all of him.
I think he got blew up.
Let's see. Booker T is here. Patrick is looking real jacked today. So from the source himself, the arbiter of jackedness, Booker T says Patrick is looking jacked. Tube Socks says, does Mitch have toe thumbs? I do not. I have normal thumbs. They make fun of Ethan because he has toe thumbs, or say that he has toe thumbs. He does kind of have shorter thumbs, and I have lean and normal thumbs. I might not be able to beat Ethan at crowdfunding, but I bet I could beat him at thumb wrestling. So.
Oh man, I don't know if you've got toe thumbs. That's pretty mean. That's a lot of leverage in toe thumbs.
That's true. Yeah, it's like the short, stout guys. They can kind of like get under you and wrestle you. Yeah. Okay.
I have thumb wrestled a toe thumb person before, and it was brutal.
Oh, okay. Oh man. Well,
yeah.
He may have a secret skill that no one knows about: thumb wrestling. Okay, and at this point, we're just kind of like reading the chat and shooting jokes around, but they're fun. People are laughing. Rodwell laughs. At least one person lolls for us.
That's great.
Somebody says I should challenge Ethan. No, not after what Patrick said. I do not want to lose a thumb wrestling contest unless I know I'm going to win a contest. I'm not going to enter it. I'm just kidding. Rhaegar Targaryen is back. Says it was really interesting to see you guys talking about villains for Red Rooster, a rogues gallery of villains similar to Batman and Spider-Man. Yes, that's the idea. I think that gives us. It's kind of a tall order, but Mark Pellegrini has. I created a few villains, and he created a few villains, and then together we kind of created a rogues gallery. So it is. I mean, things like Batman, all the rogues weren't created like right out of the gate, were they? I mean, as I remember. So these evolved over time. So it's kind of a tall order to do what we did. We spent many months crafting a plot, a narrative, and the special, and also the rogues and heroes that go along with it. So I hope you come out and support it and check out all these characters that we have created and put so much work into. Patrick, I think I'm going to wind this thing down. I'm starting to get a little tired. And I did want to draw a little bit before I went home, but I kind of miss my wife, so I'm ready to get on out of here.
So you're at the office now, aren't you?
Yes, this is my new office, and it's about 10 minutes or 12 minutes away from my house, so it's not a bad commute.
What time you got?
It's 10:35.
Oh my God! Okay.
Yeah, we've been on for a long time. This is my longest chat ever. But Patrick and I have long talks all the time when he's not really busy with work and getting married and all that stuff. So, Patrick, did you want to? I mean, you're not really using your Twitter account or any social media stuff, are you? So you didn't really have anything to blast out.
I just refreshed my Twitter account for the for the first time in a long time the other day, and I spent most of that just deleting old tweets. No, I mean, I don't have anything to push right now other than just rousing support for Red Rooster and then subsequently the Futurists. Man, you guys are really you've started something significant and I think pretty amazing, and I'm looking forward to see how far you take that. And then to everybody that was watching, definitely thanks for tuning in, and if you've supported that campaign, many thanks for that. I know Mitch appreciates it, and he's going to do great things with it. And to everybody who has not yet, do support that.
Yeah, please do. Give us a chance. Give us a shot. You can read the pitch on the Indiegogo webpage. The link is in the description. So click the link, back the campaign, get excited about the other stuff we've been talking about tonight. And thank you, Patrick, for coming on, introducing yourself to my growing YouTube audience.
Hey, thanks for the invite.
And have a great night. Tell Christina I said hello. And I'll talk to you real soon. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.